Are you mad?
Never stop.
Morning, everybody. Just those of you in need of a sound check, Sari speaking. We're just letting more people into the meeting. More people are joining. So we'll be with you in a few minutes' time. Thank you.
Morning, Harry. How is everybody this morning, colleagues?
Fine, and you, Basil?
All good, all good. Highly disruptive with COVID, but we're trying to survive and manage.
Hi, Basil.
Hello there. How's everybody doing?
Good, and you, Basil?
All good, all good. Wishing everybody well today. I'm sure it's going to be a fabulous success. Round one. How
Good morning.
Nerves.
Good morning, Victor De Bruin speaking. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning, Victor.
Just a sound check for you guys joining in. We just allowing more people into the session. We will start in 2 minutes' time. All right, good morning to all the colleagues. welcome here today at the Transport Forum 1st of July. It's great seeing all the faces again, talking today about risk and insurance post-COVID. And it's great seeing all of you today. Thank you for joining in. We really appreciate that. What we're going to do is we're going to give more people the opportunity to join in, but let's do some housekeeping in the meantime while we allow more people in. Fortunately, we're all getting used to this virtual events now. It's not that difficult anymore. Please keep yourselves on mute. I see somebody coming in now, so that we can make sure that we don't have too many background noises. All right. Let me just get these guys on mute. All right, ladies and gents, remember that you're welcome to make use of the chat room. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see there's a chat room. And in this chat room, you can then greet everybody. You can share contact details and so on. So it's a great platform to network, and you're most welcome to make use of that. Please do not do unnecessary promotional work. We would like to keep the focus, where we are today. And yeah. Then during the event, we do not encourage questions and answers during the presentations. So there will be questions and answers sessions. We will give you opportunity then to ask your questions and address the panelists. So that will happen later on. And the focus is then there. You can go to the participants box. You'll see there's a participants box at the bottom of your screen. And there, if you click on participants, it will open up a little dialog box where you can see who are on the session, and you can actually mouse over your own name if you like. You can rename yourself. Sometimes the device name is displaying and not your own name. So you're welcome to rename yourself. It's always great to see who's on the program and from what companies you are. You're welcome to do that. I just want to say the guys following on YouTube, there's already a few people on YouTube. You're welcome to text questions on YouTube, and we will try and address those questions you might have to the panelists during the questions and answers session. Also take note that these presentations you see here today, and actually all the presentations that we do at the Transport Forum over the past 14 years have been uploaded to the Transport Forum's website, from where you can download them complimentary. So that's available for you. And there's actually more than 900 presentations already. And it's actually known as a very powerful knowledge base internationally, and very popular internationally. People downloading these presentations quite intensively. So we're very proud in having that, and obviously it's our sponsors making it possible. So if we talk about sponsors, obviously wonderful companies making this possible so that we all can have this content and presentations complimentary. And I would like to put up my screen. So there we are. We're talking risk and insurance post-COVID, 1st of July to 2021. We hosted today by Saboa in collaboration of Ability and Inware Risk Services. Thank you very much. We will give them opportunity just now to tell us more about themselves. But we also would like to give recognition to the sponsors, the other sponsors of the Transport Forum, making this possible for many years. Looking at those sponsors, first of all, we have industry alliances we're very proud of. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put up a little slide showing our sponsor, and then we'll ask if there's somebody from the sponsoring company would like to say a few words about this company sponsoring the Transport Forum. If not, then we discuss it a little bit about a slide and we'll go to the next one. Sometimes they leave it over to me to do all the hard work. So, all right. So we're proud of having formal industry alliance, SAF, SAIPA, SABOA, AREA, and SILSA as formal industry alliances with the Transport Forum. So if you look at the South African Association of Freight Forwarders, then if there's somebody from them, you're welcome. If I show the slide, you guys, to interrupt me if you want to tell more about your own company, obviously the company on the screen. But SAF is accepted by the authorities as the leading industry voice and is consultant by them on matters influencing freight management. And that's obviously all about the freight forwarding and clearing industry. So they formal alliance with the Transport Forum. South African Express Parcel Association, representative body and voice of the express delivery industry in South Africa. They joined us also the beginning of this year. There we've got SABOA. I'll give Basil opportunity just now to tell us more about SABOA, who also joined us at the beginning of this year. African Rail Industry Association, preeminent body in South Africa representing players in the railway industry. Our vision is to have world-class rail infrastructure across Africa. Mission is to materially advocate for the rail industry and third-party access to the country's railway network. In other words, they're doing lots of work in uplifting the economy of our country. Extremely important work they are doing. Marcella and Slaupo and her team. CLAT, Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport, leading international professional body for everyone who knows, who works within the supply chain, logistics and transport. Catherine Larkin is the executive director there, and she's also supporting the transport quite aggressively. Thank you, Catherine. Then we've got formal media partners with the Transport Forum. Obviously, there are many others as well. That we're very thankful for. We're thinking about Freight News. See somebody from Freight News, I want to say a few words perhaps. Freight News very active in logistics and transports. Obviously magazines that you should subscribe to. Established, innovate, effective, was founded in 1953 by John Marsh and continues to be run as a family business by Dave, second generation, then Anton's third generation. Anton Marsh, and to be up to date with all the logistics industry in our country and associated industries. Railways Africa is the Africa Continent Specialist Trade Technical Business-to-Business online publication covering all aspects of the rail sector, published weekly online. So great having Philippa and them part of the Transport Forum. Right, Ability. Maybe Yolanda is somebody, if you guys want to tell us more about Ability. And I'm very proud to announce that Ability is actually signed up from today as a gold sponsor of the Transport Forum. So we're very proud in having you on board. Yolanda?
Thank you, Harry. Yes, your ability to spend our days brewing new ways to empower our brokers and policyholders, and through extraordinary risk solutions and to mitigate and manage their risk exposures. So my company offers a couple of products, one of which is in the passenger transport industry, which is bus and coach insurance. But we also offer commercial insurance and excess solutions. So yes, if everybody who watching, if you have any questions for me, etc., you are welcome to visit our website on www.iability.co.za. Thank you.
Thank you, Yolanda. Very proud in having you as part of the family. Thank you very much. Right, then we have Inway Risk Services, a co-host today. Steve, may you want to tell us more? There's our friend Steve. Steve, unmute.
Sorry, Harry, just a bit of technical problems here as usual. Good morning, everybody. Yes, I think Inway would like to position themselves as brokers that do things differently, that recognize clients' unique characteristics and present solutions, advice that is best for the client. And I hope you all listening out there will find today's session interesting, and you're welcome to contact me. You will get my details later from my presentation. And Harry, thank you for hosting another fine event.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Right, glad to announce that Unitrans also joining us today as a gold sponsor of the Transport Forum. Don't know if Carly or Catherine want to say a few words on Unitrans. And as we can see, they say innovation, expertise delivered. Unitrans supply chain solutions, the transportation and logistics company that have been unlocking value in supply chains in various sectors of sub-Saharan economy since 1962 already. We pride ourselves in establishing strategic alliances with our clients by continually unlocking value through operational and SHEQ excellence. So thank you very much, Unitrans. We are very proud in having you part of the Transport Forum. University of Johannesburg, ladies and gents, they've been part of the Transport Forum since the start, more than 14 years ago. Prof. Jackie Walters, Prof. Nalin Pisa and them supporting us excellently. Our excellent qualification provides care, skills, and facilitate career development in an important industry. So on behalf of the Department of Transport Supply Chain Management, we encourage you to travel smart and plan your journey. And there's the web address to access their website. Thank you, UJ. C-Track, somebody from C-Track? C-Track actually been part of us from the start as well. The operation spans 6 continents, over 55 countries. With over 30 years of experience, we have been keeping mobile assets of custom consumers, small and mid-sized businesses, and large enterprises always visible. That's the important thing, being always visible, resulting in vehicle security, safer driving, and more efficient fleet operations. We committed to our vision of being an innovative global solutions provider, simply connecting people with information, always visible. Thank you, C-Track. But Air Cargo, well, they fulfill the needs of the express cargo industry for daytime and overnight cargo capacity across the comprehensive Southern and East Africa footprint. It's a leading cargo end line, providing express airport-to-airport solutions and related services to the carrier and express logistics industry. They joined us in January as a gold sponsor. Zutari, many years already with the Transport Forum, previously known as Oricon. As engineering consultants and trusted advisors, Zutari co-creates impact that enables economies, communities, and environments to thrive. And you can see all the markets they're involved in. Excellent consulting engineering group. Thank you, Zutari, for your gold sponsorship. Global Trade Solutions, somebody from GTS want to say a few words? They offers customers and connected consulting services, founded in South Africa in 1999. They deliver innovative technology and consulting services to the international trade and supply chain community. You can see it's a user-friendly, cloud-based international trade and supply chain solution that incorporates the core requirements to manage all activities around the international supply chain. All about integration as well. Thank you, GTS. Standard Bank, somebody from Standard Bank. They joined us gold sponsor October last year, but they've actually been involved in the Transport Forum for many years. Over 158 years of experience, we believe that dreams matter and that together we can make them a reality. Standard Bank operates in more than 20 countries in Africa and abroad. Worldwide presence consists of an integrated suite of end-to-end wealth management services and banking solutions. Thank you, Standard Bank. Cuba, as part of the ICM Mobility Group, enables public and private transport to move into the digital era. Journey planning, smart ticketing, streamlining, electronic payments, shaping the digital transformation mobility sector. They understand mobility. You can see they're active in more than 100 cities. Major metros in South Africa being delivered by Cuba. Great having them as a gold sponsor for quite a number of years. Easy Clear. Jody, you want to say a few words about EasyClear?
Hi, good morning, everybody. EasyClear is a customs clearing software solution. So we facilitate all the EDI transactions. So yes, in a nutshell, maybe not necessarily for this transport forum, but yes, if you are an importer or an exporter, clearing agent, you are welcome to contact us. And we supply, well, we offer a very easy solution to all your custom clearing needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. They joined us as well January this year as a gold sponsor. Thank you very much, EasyClear. Huawei. Many people think Huawei only sells cell phones, but that's not the case. They say in smarter transportation in a smarter world, in increasing globalized urban world, transportation is critical. Huawei technologies help design and implement smart infrastructure for transport, from rail to urban rail networks to smart airports, promoting the increased use of ICT, information and communications technology, in the transportation sector. Huawei helps to optimize transportation services, making travel more convenient, safer, and more efficient. Leading new ICT, building smart urban rail as well. So Huawei also joined us in January this year as a gold sponsor. Thank you very much, Huawei. JC Auditors, Oliver, you're online yet to tell us more about JC Auditors? So they accredited Road Transport Management System and International Standards Organization certification. It's very important nowadays, guys, to be compliant. And JC Auditors can help you with your compliance. As far as I know, they also deliver POPI Act compliance. So talk to Oliver. He's also one of our presenters and so on later on today. Thank you, JC Auditors, for your gold sponsorship. We've got the Bunye Capital, Public Transport Knowledge Hub, bespoke taxi industry insights. They understand the taxi industry, integrated public transport network advisory, public transport thought leadership. As we see Majola, CEO of Bunye, thank you for your gold sponsorship. All right, so I would like to hand you over to Basil to tell us more about Saboa. But Basil, sorry, before I do that, to just do this one here. Ladies and gents, the transport presentations you see here today will be uploaded to the Transport Forum website, those that's been made available. That's the website, the web address. Just quickly, if you want to access the presentations, you should log in. If you go to that website, you should see to the left of the screen a user login. If you haven't got an account yet, you can click on sign up to create your own user account. It's all complimentary. You create your own username and password. It sends you a confirmation email so we can see this is not a hacker trying to get into our system. And after you've done that, then you can sign in with your own username and password. You go to events and downloads, and that should give you a little search engine. Simple but very powerful. So here you type in either a guy's name, a person's name, or a date, and you click on search, and then to bring you up all presentations presented by that person over the past 14 years. Or at category, you can select today's date, and it will bring up all the presentations presented today so that you can download them. Take note of our business directory. It's been outsourced to Boleng Bontle Consultant as one of our empowerment initiatives. So Olga Mashilu, she administers the Transport Forum business directory, and it's very popular, ladies and gents. They're telling us they're getting lots of hits on this. So either take a picture there of Olga's number, contact her. That's only 450 rands per year to be listed on this directory. And well, we're going to send you some feedback forms after the session, where you also be given opportunity to indicate whether you want Olga to contact you to be listed on this business directory. All right, so now we're with our friend Basil, our host for the day. Basil, I'm going to stop sharing, but maybe quickly tell us more about Saboa, and then I'll put up the program for you to introduce the presenters. Thank you very much, Basil.
Thanks, Harry. Morning, everybody. Yeah, I think most of you by now know who SABA is and what SABA is about. The industry association representing broadly the bus and coach operators, owners, companies, and stakeholders. As part of our value offering, I think we are evolving and to ensure that we're keeping up and bringing more value to our members and stakeholders. These are the type of events that we are collaborating and hosting to bring not only the core issues, but related issues, I think, to the discussion and engagement platforms. And we remain committed so that not just the public transport environment, but where there's overlapping issues or cross-functional issues like today's topic, that the broader transport and logistics environment and the industry can collectively benefit from these type of engagements. So yeah, while SABA's focus is primarily on public transport, our partners for today's event, Ability and Indwe, and together with the Transport Forum, we're seeking to address the issue of risk and insurance across the transport and logistics environment. But just some key issues that SABA is currently involved in, and I think from a broader perspective of collaboration, it's important. We've just got agreement with the Department of Health to initiate a project for vaccination across the transport industry. They've started with the taxi industry with a pilot program in Midrand earlier this week, but we are evolving the discussions from next Tuesday onwards. So that speaks to us collectively ensuring that we are positioned and ready to ensure our frontline workers and employees in the transport sector are elevated for vaccine. But I'll provide more details as we reach agreement with them. But coming back to today, just as an intro, and I have a very small role today, thankfully, because I generally tend to speak a lot on these issues. We're all aware of the heightened threats to transport in general and the industry in general, from ongoing intimidation, violence, crime, protest action, and in a deeper draw, I suppose, general inconsistency in regulations and enforcement. We know our country's broader dependence on a secure transport and logistics environment for growth is key, but it is also constrained currently by somewhat static and uncertain current environment and legislation. And that brings with it all sorts of associated risks to operators and stakeholders. Whilst we need innovation and technology to ensure sustainability, I think, and I've said this many times and I won't get tired of saying it because I think it's important to all of us as stakeholders and incumbent upon all of us to ensure that we start generating a sound body of data. Without data sets that have integrity, we cannot plan and structure our transport environment, and by extension, we cannot do viable costing of transport services and offerings. So insurance and risk has always been and will continue to be a key factor in successful financial positioning of businesses, not only within public transport, but in the broader environment. I'm excited that our partnership with both Ability Underwriting Managers and Indwe Risk Services gives us this opportunity to bring to you, expertise and offerings, bring it closer to the industry. So we're thankful for today's panelists who come with a range of industry, sector, specialized experience, and also for availing themselves and sharing with us. Today's event, aptly titled Risk and Insurance Post-COVID, but I think the sub headline, if you read it, addressing the changes and challenges facing the transport industry in terms of risk and insurance through and following COVID and finding ways to reduce costs. So today's forum will provide several tips, valuable insights for streamlining your risk profiles, dealing with claims, and saving on risk and insurance payaways in the midst of the pandemic. And I hope that after getting some of the intricacies and also building competence, we'll get to be able to make better decisions in this area. So Harry's got the screen up there for the program kicking off. And kicking us off today is Mr. Steyn McDowell. He's the Executive Director in Indwe Risk Services, and he will talk to the changing face of insurance post-COVID, and whilst we recognize the role of risk management. Welcome, Steyn. Good morning. Over to you.
Good morning, Basil. How are you this morning? And I'd just like to extend a heartfelt thanks to Harry and yourself for inviting us from Indwe to speak to you today on, the changing world as far as COVID and the impact of COVID has been on our insurance industry. And also, I'm speaking to you as an insurance broker this morning, not as an insurer. I'll leave that to you, Landi, to do the insurance talk. Harry, do you want me to share the presentation, or will you share
Yes,
it?
please, Steyn. Yes, please.
Okay, I'm going to do that now. Zoom is a bit different. Sorry, Harry. I'm used to Teams. How do I share on Zoom?
To the bottom of your screen, there's a green share screen option.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Thank you very much. Nerves a little bit here this morning. Hey, sorry about that. Okay, there we go. I think I'm sharing now. And I will just put that onto, if you can tell me when you see that screen.
We can see it, just go to slide mode.
I'll go to slide mode now for you. Thank you very much. Slideshow. And that'll be from the beginning. There we go. All right. Thank you very much, Harry. Thanks for helping there. So, ladies and gentlemen, the change. I can go back to sort of this time last year and a bit earlier, where I was asked to speak at the EWN forum and on certain radio and television newscasts about what the impact of this pandemic was going to be. And at that stage, the pandemic was not going to be an 18-month pandemic. No one, I think, knew that the immensity of a global pandemic with COVID-19 would do what it does to us. And so I will very shortly speak to you. I've got 15 minutes, and we could speak for 15 hours, 15 days, or 15 months on this topic. You can really choose the amount of time. There's so much we can discuss, and so many fingers we can point at different sectors. But I will, in the chatbot, which Harry has kindly put there for us, I will leave my contact details. And if anyone has any direct questions or anything, please feel free to either ask them there or to reach out to me, and we can chat about this. So I'm going to talk very shortly on the insurability of a pandemic risk. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about crisis management, which is something I'm very close to. Some lessons learned, especially in business interruption and some of the court cases that you've heard about locally in South Africa, but also in the UK and our friends in Australia. And then risk management, is it a fallacy? Is it lip service? And I'm going to leave you to make that choice, because I think we're paying some lip service here. Okay, so look, we can compare COVID to cyber a risk, and that's why I've put it there. This is a virus. It has many mutations, as we see from the World Health Organization. They can change all the time. Now, it travels very quickly, and it impacts large parts of the world at exactly the same time. Look, this is not shared by things like natural catastrophes that the insurance industry was always used to. These folk in the insurance industry have been used to hurricanes and fires, big storms, and things like that. Although they have massive impacts, as you'll see in Katrina and things like that, are of short duration. So the duration is not as big. Yes, Katrina hit the world with billions of dollars of loss, but it ends. The problem with COVID is there's no end in sight as far as things are concerned. If we look at our president, who had to lock us down again for 14 days on a extended level 4, imagine what that does to the restaurant industry. And then the restaurant industry, of course, has a knock-on effect to our industry in transport. They need less, we can deliver less. I mean, that's a knock-on effect of catastrophic enormity. how are we going to look from the insurance point of view of sorting this out? Now, I'll leave this to my friend Yolandi later to talk to us about, but things like pools, and this is not the fire pool I'm talking about or the swimming pool outside. These are pools like, you all well know, pools like Sasria. So when you look at Sasria, where we look at political violence and terrorism and things like that, I think also nuclear, so the nuclear disasters in this world would be so big if you look at Chernobyl and things like that, that the industry formed pools. So they have a nuclear pool and things like that, and terrorism pools. I think we're going to look towards pandemic pools in the future. We'll have to pool our resources across the globe. So it's not just a local South African pandemic pool. There's not enough money for us to be able to do that. And I really believe that the industry as a whole, and I see some movement in Lloyd's of London where they're starting to think about pools. And that's why I use that word syndication, where it's a Lloyd's syndicate and there are many syndicates, and those syndicates put their money together to assist us in terms of that syndication of risk and being able to pay out at time of claim, etc. And then, of course, we've got, crowdfunding, which is a big new thing. And that's because 6 billion people in the world are starting to play in the insurance industry, while 6 billion people can start to pool funds together. And that in itself might be a solution that we could look at, post-COVID-19. Let's think about crisis management for a bit. And I've got folk that are listening on this presentation that are highly specialized in risk management. And there's a difference between risk management and crisis management. Okay, risk management is where, on a day-to-day basis, we plan for risk, we have nice risk plans in place, we have battle boxes when things go wrong. Well, where was the battle box when COVID hit us? See, that was a crisis. And the difference between crisis and risk is crisis hits us, and really, where are we? What are we going to do? Where do we go to from here? But it's also about being resilient, okay, in terms of individual risk and a broad spectrum of potential unexpected risk, as COVID was an unexpected risk that hit us very badly. Now, from a crisis risk management point of view, we've got to start thinking of life very, very differently. Scenario planning is something we have to think of. I mean, who would have thought 3 years ago of a pandemic risk? Now, on my last slide, I'm going to come back to that, because maybe we should have been thinking about pandemic risks. Maybe we knew about pandemic risks. We never thought of the global impact of a pandemic risk. We thought of localized impacts of pandemic risks. And as insurers often do, what will they do? They'll say, oh, we'll cover you for a pandemic, a suicide, or shark bite. Okay, shark bite. Well, yeah, in Gauteng, sorry guys, that's just the way insurance works. It would have been for all the coastal areas along the coast. So imagine there's a coastal incident, a shark bites somebody in False Bay on the one side of False Bay. But because the local authorities worried that there are more great whites in False Bay, they closed down that whole area. Now that's normally for a short duration period. And therefore, you would be covered for that short duration period that you can't do business. And that's why, if you think about the court cases that have been heard up to now, the insurers are arguing that this was not foreseen. We did not foresee this. The court didn't worry about that. They just said, well, your wordings are badly written and therefore you must pay. But let's come back to what they were thinking about. They were thinking about, if on your premises you have an infection or a flu that's so bad that you have to close your business down, it would be for a week or two to get it cleaned up properly, and then you'd open up again. And that is normally a sub-limit on an insurance policy where you can then claim for that week where you haven't had any business. And we must also remember something else that was argued quite extensively, is that business interruption traditionally means there must be physical damage. So therefore, if I have my mobile phone and I drop it and it breaks and it doesn't work, that's physical damage. But COVID doesn't leave us with physical damage. COVID leaves us with a material damage without physical damage. And therefore, many of the policies out there did not give us that extension of cover. We mostly found that extension of cover under hospitality type policies where they would have something called contingent business interruption cover. And that's contingent to something like a virus. Okay, so enough of that. But why had insurers not thought about this in the past? My view, silo mentality. But it happens to us as well in business. We often think in silos. Operations think operations, finance thinks finance, HR thinks HR, and at the end of the day, we all argue and fight with each other. Exactly what the insurers did. They siloed themselves as far as these massive pandemics were concerned, and therefore did not foresee this or plan it in their scenarios as far as their actuaries were concerned to determine the impact of these massive complications. So insurers and crisis risk management is very important because, and I've experienced it, so I've been involved not only in indirect clients and their claims, but I've been asked to do some claims advocacy for other clients. So all of a sudden we go into a lockdown. First it's level 5, so it's a hard lockdown, we don't do much, then we're into level 4. The first thing that happens is maintenance goes for a loop, operations slow down, and all of a sudden we find that when things start to switch on again, we're getting fires, dust explosions, etc. And it's only because in a lot of cases, businesses run on a 24-hour cycle. So things are running, people are checking, oh, there's a spark, let's fix it, that's getting warm, let's fix that. Oh, there's dust, let's have that vacuumed out. Unfortunately, this ceases when we're under a very hard lockdown. Now we have to be very careful that our friendly insurers don't look at consequence of. So they start to exclude the impact of the pandemic, which is fair, it's all been done now. We know that from last July already, there's no insurance policy that will give us any pandemic cover. I'm starting to concern myself about the effect of an additional exclusion that your fire was a result of the fact that you did not do something because of COVID. Is that going to happen or not? I don't know. I've seen some insurers, especially internationally, trying to push that type of wording, but as brokers, we fight back against that extensively to look after our clients. Okay, so scenario analysis must be improved. And how do we do that? We have to test exposures. We have to test the contract wording challenges. But this is exactly what it was. Insurance, and I include myself, insurance is bad in a certain way from this point of view. We are 25 years behind the rest of the world. Our wordings are 25 years behind the rest of the world. It's time for us to wake up, get these contractual wordings sorted out so that they are forward-looking. Okay. So I'm not saying to ourselves, oh, you know, will we be attacked by aliens? And I use that in inverted commas because, I mean, if I watch enough DSTV, then an alien invasion is quite possible. So from a scenario point of view, there is a possibility. Is it probable? Highly unlikely. Is it possible? Who knows? The last thing I'd like to speak about is, I'll leave it with you. You can go and search this on Google. It's very interesting. The first historic pandemic, ladies and gentlemen, was 3000 BC, 5,000 years ago. Now, how do we know that? We know that because we have very, very advanced archaeological capabilities at universities today, and we can do something called nuclear DNA. So from a nuclear DNA point of view, they found a small village in China that had been burnt down. Okay, and at first they thought it was a war or two skirmishing clans of people. No, they found from nuclear DNA that that village population had had an disease. And the folk around them had realized this was a disease and it was spreading to other folks, so they burnt the village. In the last 100 years alone, and I chose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, 1956 to 58, there was an influenza pandemic. I'm not even talking about the Spanish flu. 1968, influenza pandemic, HIV pandemic, SARS pandemic, flu pandemic. Okay, so the pandemic after Ebola, were we or are we prepared? So just go into TED Talks and go and have a look for a talk where Bill Gates did a talk on pandemics. So he didn't predict COVID, as people are saying or not. So he didn't predict COVID. He predicted there will be a far bigger pandemic after Ebola. Now, if that was already out there, then our scenario planning as organizations should have taken that into consideration. And it should not be, back to my first slide, about crisis risk management anymore. It should have been about risk management, the IECT. Identify, evaluate, look at the controls, and if possible, transfer the risks. So was it a black swan that hit us? No, it couldn't have been a black swan because we knew about pandemics. It could have been, yes, the very ugly duckling, which I'll ask some of the risk managers to write on for us that are listening to this at the moment. And so, Basil and Harry, from my point of view, there are a lot of folk that are going to speak after me about very interesting things in insurance, and I look forward to listening to them. And, you know, from a transport point of view, may this blow away as quickly as possible so we can get back to business as usual. Thank you very much for your time and listening today.
Thank you, Stein McD, as I always reference you. I'm getting some echo. Okay, that's gone. Thanks, Stein. Yeah, I think a good scene setting, if you want to call it. I must apologize, I didn't get your bio, so I didn't get you a big shout out pre your presentation. So, but I think your lovely face and background tells us everything we need to know about you. Thanks. So key takeaways there, I think, in setting the way forward for today. I'm a bit concerned if the contractual wording's still about a 25-year-old lag, but I trust all the experts today will assist us in getting closer to fixing the contractual wording and terminology. But in keeping with today's event, I think we need to break down silo mentality as well. A lot of our stakeholders are across the board in transport and logistics. So everybody present, I think, don't look at your broker or insurer as the person who will save you money or grudgingly takes away your money. I think it needs to become a process of a confidant, a best friend, and your risk assessment guru. So in line with that, thanks, Stein. And moving on to the next part, next up we've got Mr. Steve Cornelius. He's the head of transport at Indware Risk Services. A little bit about Steve is trying to encapsulate 25 years into 2.5 lines here. Steve has been working in the insurance sector for more than 25 years, the last 10 years of which has been in the employ of Indware Risk Services, specifically focusing on insurance solutions for the transport industry. An accountant, not old school accountant, but an accountant by qualification, and he is a fellow of the Insurance Institute. He looks after the partnerships which Indware have with the RFA, Road Freight Association, as well as with SABOA. Very hands-on, very intimately involved in the processes. Steve also represents the insurance sector on the RTMS steering committee, and is a passionate supporter of the role that RTMS has to play in the industry. Steve will be presenting on alternative policy structures and how operators can save on premiums. Thanks. Welcome, Steve. Good morning.
Thank you, Basil. I'm going to try and share my screen. Does that work?
Not yet, Steve.
It's up on my side here. Let me.
Is a green share screen on your side?
Not doing anything from my side here, Harry.
Okay, let me
I'm clicking share screen.
I'm loading your presentation on my side. Let's see if I can share it. But it's coming through now, I see.
Does it come through?
Yes, just slideshow mode for us, please. There we go, perfect.
Okay, sorry about that, Harry, but I think you're getting used to my skills, my technology skills by now. Good morning, everybody. My topic for today is basically alternative insurance structures, but going back from that, it's really about finding ways to save money. I think COVID has emphasized the importance of that, but yet it shouldn't just be a COVID-driven exercise. I think this is more to do with common sense, best business practices, and just really clients should be aware of the opportunities that do present themselves in the insurance, with the insurance portfolio, to save money. I think I'm going to just talk a little bit about, first of all, the cost of insurance. And what's important here is that every client is unique. The fleet size, the routes, the claims ratios, the loads they're carrying, whether they're human beings or tobacco or whatever, their ability to manage their risk. Those are just some of the unique issues that every client will have, which will necessitate the broker doing an analysis of these unique features and coming up with a solution that best fits that particular client. So on the cost of insurance, I need to emphasize, and I do whenever I get the opportunity to present, that insurance is a very expensive finance mechanism to protect your perils and your risks. It's not cheap. In the insurers that are accepting your risk have to make money, so they need to make a profit. The broker needs to get paid. So really, for every R1 of protection, you're going to pay about R1.40, which is expensive. So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is that insurance should only be looked at as a solution for unforeseen and catastrophic events. Always look for the predictable non-catastrophic items to rather be brought into your operational expense situation and not buying insurance for it. Just a bit of hint there already to save some money. So once we understand the cost of insurance, let's have a look at ways that we can actually bring down. Harry, so I just want to take this off here. Okay. Let's find ways of bringing this cost down. And one of the most important and easiest ways of doing it is to have a look at your operation and ask the question, are you getting recognition for your risk management interventions that you are employing in your business? And some of these interventions I will touch on. Most of them and all of them, you should be getting recognition, and in the form of premium discounts or some form of financial benefit. Just to mention a couple of important ones: driver management. Your drivers are your biggest risks out there. To manage them is essential. To show the insurer that you're doing it successfully should bring you recognition. Vehicle protection, protecting your asset, load protection, protecting what you're carrying, and I'm happy. It's not often that we have happy endings with claims events, but just earlier this week, one of my clients had a hijacking scenario, a truck with a Superlink trailer and fully loaded. And because of the fact that and I'll give them a boast here, we recently had beanies installed, and on the basis of the beanie, the truck, the trailer, and the loads were successfully recovered, saving the insurer a bomb, saving the client a bomb, and because there's no winner when something like that happens. Maintenance protocols, an essential risk management issue to ensure that your vehicles are well maintained, and all those things put together allow you lower claims frequencies, lower cost of claims, resulting in better loss ratios, and all the nice things that come with it, like consistent premiums, not these huge fluctuations in premiums. And I must just add here, a lot of those interventions that I mentioned, driver management, vehicle protection, load protection, maintenance, are all addressed in RTMS, which you'll hear a little bit about later when Oliver talks to you. Hence my passionate support of RTMS. Now, to get on to the three things that I'm actually supposed to be talking about here, being the introduction of different premium payment structures. I think generally I can say safely most small to medium-sized businesses just think that conventional premium is the way to go. So you fill in a proposal form and you give the insurer your particulars with some claims experience, and they come back and they quote you a premium and you accept it and you sign up and your debit order goes through, and that's how the greater majority of clients handle their insurance structures. I'm hoping that at the end of this short little presentation that transporters out there will realize that the first process has to take place. So the insurer has to assess the risk and determine a premium. But there is another step in this whole process, and that is deciding how best to structure the payment of that premium.
Stephen, sorry to interrupt you. Are you still on the introduction page? Because that's what we see.
Yes, I am. I'm going to get on to the actual why am I? I'm better at talking than preparing slideshows, Harry. I am still there, but we will get onto the detailed structure shortly.
Thank you.
I just want to give some background. The three structures that I'm going to be talking about are not, it's not all encompassing. There are more detailed ones, but these are the easiest and quickest structures that we as brokers can have a look at. And when I finish my presentation, I think you'll see that one has to determine where to apply. It's not one size fits all type of thing here. So I'm going to talk about a profit share arrangement. I'm going to talk about a fund arrangement, and I'm going to talk about a deposit premium arrangement. And hopefully at the end, and watch this, Harry, here we go, on to the next slide. Well, let's see if I can get it to change. Well, Harry, I'm not sure what button I've got to press here to get it onto the next slide. Can you perhaps move it from your side?
No, I can't, but try page down.
No luck with that.
Or an up arrow, down arrow, or
shall I try and get out and come in again with this presentation? I wouldn't even know how to do that. Oh, no. Oh, there we go.
There we go. There we go.
Okay. This is the first of the three processes or structures that I was talking about, which is a basic profit share. And this is, it's an easy process. It's one that the broker just really needs to ask the question to the insurer at the time. It does depend on previous claims experiences, but that needn't affect the application of a profit share. So your basic premium stays the same. And in all three, I've just given round figures here. I've looked at an annual premium of R1 million. I've brought in actual claims for the year of 600. Which gives you an actual loss ratio of 60%, the loss ratio as being a percentage of the claims divided by the premium. The expected loss ratio is what the insurer hypothetically has said he is satisfied, and anything better than that will earn a profit share. So this is a very, very simple structure. So comes the end of the year, your expected claims should have been 650, your actual claims were 600,000, and you've earned yourself a 50,000 Rand refund from the insurer. So that is assuming that your claims were below the 650. Now, you'll see my little note at the bottom there, if you have no claims during the year, you get all your premium, or you get 650,000 Rand back. That's insurers generally protect themselves for that situation, and they'll probably give you perhaps 25% or a 50% of what you are under the expected loss ratio. But that's a question of negotiation with the insurer. There is no limit in terms of premium for this thing. It can be the smallest premium can incur a profit share. I haven't found many insurers out there that aren't prepared to look at a profit share, regardless of the size of the premium. So that's the first scenario. The second scenario is a little bit more complicated. It's a fund arrangement. Again, my assumptions stay the same. And generally, I would say that insurers wouldn't look at a fund arrangement for premium much under R1 million. I might be wrong. It's just my experience in the past. And what the insurer says is that he'll accept the full 100% premium. And then based on your negotiations again, he'll take anything between 20 and 40%, and he'll stick it into a fund. So you'll see the 60% represents risk-bearing premium, and the 40% is fund. The logic behind this scenario is that the insurer will use the fund to top up on a continual basis the premium, so that the loss ratio stays under 65%. So that in this scenario, throughout the year, there would have been a draw, the red figure being a draw from the fund into risk-bearing premium to keep the loss ratio under 65%. So your premium received is 923,000 there. Your loss ratio, that's based on 65% loss ratio. What's left in the fund is 76,000. So you'll see in this particular case, you stand to benefit more than in the previous normal straightforward profit share arrangement. So one has to have a look and see again what fits best for the client here. So that is a normal fund arrangement where the client pays his full premium across, and a portion gets allocated to risk, the other one to fund, and the fund gets drawn into premium, keep the loss ratio under what is negotiated. And you'll see my line at the bottom there. If claims stay under 390,000, the full fund gets refunded. So you can earn anything from 0 to 400,000 on this particular structure. My final structure is what I call the deposit premium arrangement. My givens are all the same. With this, again, I'd say no insurer will look at much less than R1 million premium, probably be a bit more to do this structure. What it says is that the calculated 100% premium of R1 million, they will accept 60% as a deposit premium. Generally, this is done on an annual basis. So the very first benefit that you get from this is cash flow. The client only has to pay 60% of the million, and then he has to hold thumbs that for the rest of the year, he stays under the particular thresholds that are set for him to avoid him having to pay the balance of the premium. So first of all, cash flow. Second of all, being an annual premium, the client can claim back the VAT credit on that the initial deposit premium. So there is there are two new benefits in this particular arrangement. Now, you'll see at the bottom there, the client, the insurer will expect a 65% loss ratio, but that's based only on 60% of the premium. So 65% of the 600,000 gives you your first threshold. If you breach that, the full 200,000 Rand becomes immediately payable, which will then take you to total premium received of 800,000, and 65% of that takes you to 520. And if you breach the 520 mark, the full balance of the premium becomes payable, after which you've now paid the full 100,000 Rand, and there's no, a full million Rand, should I say, and there's no further benefits to you. To compare the benefits, bearing in mind the previous two arrangements, the claims were 600,000 Rand and there were benefits received. Here, after 520, there's no benefits. So I'm a little bit over time, guys, I'm sorry. I hope that I've been able to explain and introduce 3 new concepts to those operators that are listening to me. It's worth your while to ask your broker to assess your premium structure and see if there's not a better way of doing it, and hopefully save some money. In conclusion, there are my contact details for anyone that would like to discuss anything that I've spoken about on this presentation. In conclusion, thank you, Harry, and thank you, Basil, for putting this together. Some good news. I have, let's call it breaking news. CNN always has breaking news. I've got some breaking news. Indwe have literally just been given the authority and the ability to issue cross-border yellow card third-party tokens. This is a magnificent opportunity for those of you that are listening out there that do any form of cross-border. Please get hold of us. I'll give you more detail how it works, but we did our first live issuing yesterday, as a matter of fact, so that's how hot off the press it is. And I'll give you an idea. A client with 42 vehicles is saving 400,000 Rand a year in terms of just this yellow card thing. So guys, a bit of good news to end my presentation. Thank you again, and over to you, Basil or Harry.
Thank you, Stevie. Good news indeed, and yeah, we welcome that news. We'll take it with open hands, and I'll facilitate. I think in the broader public transport sector, albeit that the borders are closed, it gives us an opportunity to look at options and opportunities there for that third-party token and cross-border stuff. But again, any options that facilitate a proper cash flow return or return on investment in insurance, I think has to be looked at from any operator owner's point of view. Thanks for those different modeling, Steve, and hopefully people take it up with you.
Thanks,
so moving along, if you're not going to save money, then do your damnedest to avoid any repudiation in current and existing contracts that you have, which brings us to the next aspect of our talk and our event. Yolandi van Niekerk is the founder and CEO of Ability Underwriting Managers. I think when she spoke early on, you sensed the passion and the determination about making a difference in the industry and also for the provision of quality service offerings. Yolandi is going to present on how we should understand our policy and I hope also address some of those 25-year-old lags and wording, but most importantly, avoid crippling repudiations, which could be the end of a business. Good morning, Yolandi. Welcome. Thank you for your time today, and over to you.
Good morning, Basil. Thank you very much to you and Harry for giving me the opportunity to present here today. I really hope that what I have to share will add some value to our listeners. And yes, we are finding ourselves in this new normal. COVID has certainly made us a lot more risk conscious, and we're thinking of risk in a different way. We definitely can't carry on in the same way that we used to. So in this time, in this new normal, the last thing you want is for any hiccups to happen when you do submit a claim to insurers. And so it's of utmost importance to have your ducks in a row. And one of my favorite sayings is that money flows through the economy from those who value it least to those who value it most. And you've got to think about your insurance that way as well. If you value your risk management and your insurance, then you will have everything in order, and you will have the least amount of probability that your claims won't get paid. So I want to compare a business to a space exploration. So you can't send 3 astronauts up into space with a couple of beers and a rocket and a dream. It doesn't work that way. It's all very nice, but they will get lost in the abyss, and it's hello darkness, my old friend. So when you are an astronaut and you go up into space, there's years of planning behind it. And there's also health checks and risk mitigation. Everything that could possibly go wrong is addressed. And that's my message to you today, is that your risk management is up to you, and it's to sit with professionals and actually analyze every single aspect of your risk. Today, the focus is on being resilient, being able to make sure that you're adaptable and that you build anti-fragility into your business. I'm just going to quickly share my screen with you. Great. Okay. So we want your claims to be handled swiftly, etc. And so over the years, in my experience, some of the things that I may mention today, you've heard before, and it might sound monotonous, but in between there will be, some highlights of how those things are very relevant now. And if you don't get them right, these problems in claim stage get amplified during COVID. So first thing to remember is that insurance contract is, I hate the word contract. I actually want to say it's a mutual agreement between you and your insurer, because your risk profile is much bigger than just your insurance. Insurance is just a risk mitigation tool. It's one component of your risk management. And so there's a mutual agreement in place between you, your insurer, and yourself. And both parties have got obligations, and both parties can hold each other accountable. So that's very important to remember. And it's not only up to the ombudsman and the lawyers to interpret the policy wording. Every insured needs to take responsibility to know what's covered and what their obligations are in terms of that policy. So the first a check that I want you to jot down is insurable interest. You have to own the items on your policy. They need to belong to you. So the policy cannot cover items that doesn't belong to you. And if it happens that your company structure, or you belong to a group of companies, etc., and there is items that belongs to another entity, those entities actually needs to be amended on your policy as part of the insured's definition of the policy. So those entity names and the identification numbers need to be on that entity. So if there's a group of company and it's 3 companies, then all their registration numbers needs to be noted on that schedule. The insurer needs to know exactly who they're dealing with. There's a bunch of checks that needs to happen in the background. It's not like in the old days where your policy can just mention for the respective rights and interests of someone. You've actually got to cross the T's and dot the I's. And then also proof of ownership documents is so important so that there's no dispute. One of the ways that you can make sure that this is done really well, and your broker will know this, is when you add a item to the policy, to request, those ownership documents up front. It's so much easier if your broker has it at hand, and you don't have to scurry around and get that information at claim stage. Just in COVID, to give you an example on how insurable interest plays out, there's a lot of assets that people might want to sell or that they're renting out, etc. So it's very important that your insurance agreement mirrors exactly what's happening in reality. And then report your claim immediately. I can't emphasize this enough. We work with, in the bus and coach industry, so it's absolute paramount that if there's an accident and something happens, that we know immediately, because lives depend on it. But even if you transport other assets, you've got to handle your claim as if lives depend on it. So within 24 hours, make sure that your claim is reported in writing so that there's no disputes afterwards. And if you do not report a claim to us, we might view it that you've been negligent in mitigating the risk, or infringed our rights. And the bigger the claim, the most important this becomes, or this point becomes. So if you've got an accident with 50 people that got injured and you only report it a month later, we're going to look at you and we're going to think that you have been grossly negligent. So just speed up those claims reporting. That's very, very important. And then how to complete your claim form. The best way to complete a claim form is for authorized representative within your organization to do it themselves. Don't let anybody else fill in your claim form. Do it yourself, do it properly, do it complete, and give true information. Don't inflate anything on your claim form. The best policy is to stick to the truth and report it as it happens. So you'll see that's a basic claim form. There's a bunch of information that's requested from you. And when you report a claim, there's a certain amount of documents that the insurer will request from you. It's better to send all those documents to the insurer highly organized in one email instead of in drips and drabs. That's just a little tip that I can give you to fast track your claim. If a claims handler gets a claim and it's complete and the information is organized, and most brokers facilitate this process as well, then that ensures a swift handling of a claim. In COVID, we've seen that technology has definitely helped us a lot, especially in the hard lockdowns, where if we've got to investigate a claim and we've got to send assessors out or loss adjusters, etc., it becomes a difficult thing to do. And if you find out from your insurer if they've got state-of-the-art technology to help you with their claims process, this is absolutely critical. So, for instance, our company uses an app where you can report when you report your claim, we send you a link, and you can stream videos to us, you can upload documents, you can take photos, etc. So it just saves everybody time in the process. And in smaller claims, it could actually eliminate the need for a claim form to be filled in, because it's got a built-in geolocator, a time, and it's a time and date stamps it, and it's a great tool to risk any fraud. So your insurer will absolutely love you if you make use of the technology that they've got available, during COVID. And then just something simple to remember: if you've got a third-party claim, if there's a third party involved, I would say fill in a traditional claim form and get it signed properly and have all the information at hand. Very important. And also on claims that are over 30,000 Rand, yes, it's great to use this technology, but you have to fill in a claim form. It becomes very important later on if there's any complicated matter to deal with. Then drivers must be licensed correctly. And why I'm bringing this up is because at the moment, we recently during COVID had a huge blunder. Our transport minister made an announcement that vehicle licenses would be extended, and it was widely published by the press, etc. And one of our policyholders actually acted on this, and they've acted on the fact that it's extended and it wasn't in the Gazette. And as a result, there was accumulation of penalties on their license fees. And that's one thing that you don't want, because those penalties can be substantial and it can absolutely cripple your business. So it's important to be informed more than ever. It's not just good enough to follow the media. You actually have to go to the gazettes. You've got to diarize your license renewals, and you've got to be on top of what the legislation says currently. Your insurer is obligated to follow the law, and they cannot incentivize anybody not to act lawfully. So it's very, very important to stay on top of that. And then a simple thing also just on licenses, I want to get back to that. An example that I just thought of at the top of my head is, you know, when a driver falls sick to COVID and you put another driver behind the wheel, we've actually had an incident like that, and that driver doesn't have the right license. That's something to watch out for, because it's happened quite a couple of times, that you don't have an individual with the right, correct license, and then something happens. The effects of that will be very unpleasant. So just please make sure that you've got those procedures in place, and that you check before you put a driver behind the wheel that's not correctly licensed. Then take responsibility. You have to have a risk management mindset. So put your astronaut suit on. Gross negligence and recklessness is solid grounds for insurers to repudiate claims. So I would just say do everything in your power to take care and to mitigate your damage, death, injury, and risk of any liabilities. And then make sure that you look after your property and take care of it. Don't leave something. If there's a claim, do everything in your power to reduce that claim. You will have the support of your insurer. And make sure that you comply and adhere to all South African laws and regulations. And then your vehicle must be roadworthy. And this, during COVID, has become a very sensitive issue, because a lot of companies can't afford to keep up the maintenance on their vehicles. Please don't put a vehicle that's not roadworthy on the road. It's the last thing that we want to do is tell you that you're not covered in terms of your policy. You have to have all the checks in place, etc. Lives are at stake, and not just yours, but you know, people around you or the drivers. And then diarize your roadworthy tests. They're very important. And those documents need to be on file and they need to be recorded. Then meet the safety requirements, make sure you're tracking and any fleet management systems, etc. If the condition of your insurance, make sure that they're in full working order. Overloading, I can't stress this enough. In the transport industry, this is probably one of the #1 reasons for rejecting claims is when a vehicle's overloaded, and these are the reasons why. It's because the insurer views it as gross negligence. So if your vehicle impacts everybody around you, and it risks lives and it risks other road users, it shouldn't be on the road. There's no question about it. Please make sure that you familiarize yourself with the National Road Traffic Act. In there, it specifies exactly what the overloading requirements is and how to measure it, etc. So educate yourself on that, and make sure that your operations have got these procedures in place. And then under the influence, of course, you know that it's very important to work this into your disciplinary code, etc. So that if one of your drivers do something that's out of your control, you can at least demonstrate to your insurer that your processes and procedures are in place and you've got everything checked. And then make sure your premiums are paid. This is very important. If you don't, if you hit a snag or whatever, insurers are very understanding and empathetic. So you can contact your broker and make an arrangement with your insurer. Don't keep quiet about premiums not being paid. And then give your full cooperation. Check the values of your items. So when you go through your schedule, I would say check not only the values of your items, but every single deductible that's on your policy as well, so that you know exactly you know what to budget for, etc. So the most unfortunate thing that happens is sometimes values are not revised, and then there's a little bit of underinsurance on the policy, and then insurers apply a thing called average. And when that average is applied, it's not a nice feeling because only a portion of your claim gets settled. And give your full cooperation to the assessors. You'll see that and investigators, you'll see that the loss adjusters and assessors today on this forum will also tell you that you accelerate everything in your claims process when you work with the insurer instead of against the insurer. So, and make sure that all the documentation that the insurer or assessors or loss adjusters ask you is given in speedily. And then do not admit any liability to third parties. You know that if you need a proper form, you can actually copy the screen and you can print it out and keep it in your driver's vehicles. It just tells you exactly what to do if you are in an accident and there's important information that you need to take down, especially when we need to represent you in terms of recoveries and third-party defense. And then last but not least, my friend Tony Sean commented on my LinkedIn post the other day, and he said, remember that experience and knowledge is always just a phone call away. And I hope you don't mind, but Tony, I've used that quote because it's so beautiful. Get hold of your broker. You know, if you do all of these things that I've told you, all the pieces of your claim comes together and you've got a little bit of control over your destiny. And so, yes, that is my presentation for today. I hope some of these tips have just reminded you of the things that you need to do to have your ducks in a row. And remember those astronaut suits. There's also blogs on my website that have recorded these tips. So if you want to go read through that, there's a link. And yeah, thank you very much, Harry. Over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yolandi. Great practical advice, I think, really. It's everything we kind of know, but we take for granted. And along the way, we don't ensure consistently that all the boxes are ticked. And I think it's kind of more critical now, coming up with some key legislation effective today, or supposedly effective today, ARTO, Poppy and the likes. It's in everybody's interest to just revisit all those basics and take your practical advice going forward. So yeah, folks, we're running slightly behind. Slightly, that's 25% of an hour behind on timing, but nevertheless, these are important issues and critical issues. So it takes us further down the line in our program onto dealing with third-party defense and recoveries and how to contribute to improve loss ratios and lower premiums. And dealing with this issue is Victor De Bruin. I've been told Victor, an attorney by profession with Lindsay Keller and Associates. So in true form of attorneys, he prefers to talk his piece rather than present it, which is his core attributes. So not tongue in cheek, but just checking, is the defense ready to proceed? Victor?
Yes, I am ready, my lord.
Welcome and all the best to you. Over to you.
Thank you.
State your
Thank
case.
you for the opportunity, Basil, to contribute this morning to the forum. I did prepare notes, but my skills in uploading these notes did not allow me this morning to do the necessary. But if I can ask Yolandi if that claim form that she prepared, whether we can perhaps put this up on the screen, or that she's got there.
So you want the claim form up?
Is it the complete claim form?
What I can do, Victor, I can get the claim form. Just give me 1 second.
Well, whilst you're doing that, let me then start off with, I am normally the last stop, and it's not the most pleasant stop, because you as the transporter, as the bus company, you lodge your claim, they pay for the damage to the bus or the vehicle, and then 12 months, 13 months down the line, you get a phone call from an attorney saying, I need to talk to you. I am now either defending a matter or I am about to issue a summons and I need certain information. Now, then immediately the insured, the bus company gets upset and says, well, why only now? I thought that was sorted out a long time ago. And a lot of that can be ascribed to claim forms that's not sometimes properly completed. But before I get to that, I just want to touch on the COVID side and how it affects the judiciary. We've got, currently, we've been told again by the courts, the Chief Civil Magistrate in Johannesburg, Pretoria, Cape Town, Bloemfontein, and by the High Court, the Judge Presidents of the various divisions of the High Court, that the courts are closed. Thank you, Yolandi. The courts are closed. No applications are being heard, no trials, unless you can prove that it's urgent. I suppose what would be urgent is that if Jacob Zuma, although he has got no further appeals, would like to approach a court and say, I want to be locked up. I suppose that would be then taken as urgent. But what we have now is the following scenario. I've got trials that could not go on last year, March. We were then granted, or the courts then removed those matters from the trial in the High Court. And in July last year, we were given dates for now, starting in July. We've now been again informed by the courts that those matters will not be heard. You can understand the frustration with the insured because he's got a big claim, he's got a big excess, he wants to carry on. Those matters are not being carried on now. Now again, we have a situation, they simply remove, and then the courts allocate us a date for next year. By that time, all our witnesses have disappeared, etc., etc. So it is a calamity. It's a real problem for us. But just to get back to third-party claims and recoveries, they overlap. But the most important starting point for us is it's the claim form. If you want to do a proper recovery or present a proper defense, it helps if you've got a motor accident claim form that is completed properly. Now I'm going to start off, if Yolanda, I'm going to ask you just to assist me there. If you can, well, just go, I just want to see if my mouse is working. Okay, if we go to the first is the vehicle details. Now, if it's a recovery that we've been instructed to deal with, then we need to know the exact make and model of that particular vehicle. And we need to have the registration number. We're not so much concerned with the purchase price, but we need to know the make, model, and we need to know the registration number, because that's important. Because for us, if we issue the summons, I need to know what vehicle is involved and what was damaged, or what thing, what item. Then the next item that's important for us is the financing. I need to know how this vehicle is financed, because Yolandi touched on this earlier, and only the owner of a thing, of property, can claim for damage. I mean, I can't borrow your vehicle to go and buy cigarettes. I'm involved in an accident, then I issue the sums. I did not suffer the loss. So we need to know about the financing details and who's the owner of that vehicle. If the vehicle was purchased for cash, fine. But if it's financed, we need to prove to the court that this vehicle was subject to a financial agreement, and we need to have those details. Then we need to go on to, if you go on the claim form, to the damage section. We need to know what is the exact damage, because you will find sometimes they will just simply say damaged. Where is the damage? Because it's important for us to know where is the damage, because does the description of the accident tie up with the damage? Because if the description says it was a rear end collision, but the damage is described as front end, then we know there's a problem. Then what is important to us as well is we need to have the police details. Sometimes we just have Johannesburg. We don't know the accident report number. We don't know at which police station. We don't know when it was reported. And we need that to enable us to follow up whether any statements were made to the police. If we then go on to the driver's details, to enable us to get hold of the driver, consult with the driver, we need full details of the driver, his cell phone number, his work number, his physical address. Why the physical address? Because if we need to subpoena him to attend the court, we need those details to assist us. Right, then the other details that we need to know is his identity number of the driver and the licensing details of the driver. And then we need to know, was the driver driving with your permission? Why is that important? Because we need to know, was he using this vehicle in his private capacity, or was he driving in the course and scope of his employment? Because if he was driving in the course and scope of his employment, then it means that the employer is liable for the wrong committed by the driver if he was negligent. Then what we need to get from the driver as well is whether he's got any physical defects, etc., etc. So it is important that those details are reflected on the claim form. Then passenger details. If we need to know, was there a passenger, is there a contact number, and can we talk to that passenger? Because he's a witness to what he saw. Then if we can go through to the other party details, and this is important, because we get other party details and the name on the claim form simply says Johnny. There's no phone number, there's no vehicle details, what he was driving. How do we then issue a summons against Johnny? If we can't get hold of Johnny, that's the end of the matter. No summons will be issued. If we have to defend the matter, then we need to know and talk to our own driver and say, that person that you've got as the other party, was he in fact involved in the accident? So that's why we need to have the full details of the other party. We need to have the address of the other party. So it's important when your drivers are at the scene, they must be educated to take photographs of the scene of the accident, take photographs of the vehicle itself of the third party, take a photograph of the driver's license and of the identity book of the third party, and a photograph of the third party himself. That's important to enable us to do what we have to do. Then if we go into the accident details, more often than not, we get a claim form that simply says date, time, and place. It says Johannesburg, and then it gets 21 June. We don't know which year, etc., and we don't know when. Then we don't know what the speed was, we don't know what the weather conditions was, etc., etc. Then we get the description of the accident, and it simply says, I was driving in Baysnodere Drive or Road, and I was involved in an accident. That does not assist us. That creates costs, because now we need to spend time and money to get those details to enable us to not take the matter further. Then the next part that we have is the description of the accident. We sometimes have a description or a sketch that is so vague. It shows the street and it looks like a T-junction, but with nothing on it. And we can't make out what it says. So when the drivers are asked to complete, or when the transport manager completes the claim form, please make sure that all these details are on the claim form, because without these details, we cannot attend to do a proper recovery or defend it properly. Just to give you an example, I mean, if we go, if we have all of those details and it reads like a book, then we can immediately attend to it. I can get a summons out, or I can defend the matter. Now, the details that we need must tie up with the rules of the court, and the rules of the court says, in order for us to issue a summons, we need the full names of the plaintiff, the physical address of the plaintiff. We need to know the date when the accident happened, where exactly the accident happened, and we need to know the full details of the quantum of the damage to the vehicle, because we need to know if it's for 20,000 Rand, for instance, it is in the magistrate's court. If it's for 250,000 Rand, it's in the regional court. If it's for 500,000 Rand, it is in the High Court. Now, the jurisdiction of the magistrate's court, the district courts, are up to 200,000 Rand is in the district court. 200,000 to 400,000 Rand is in the regional court. And from 401,000 Rand upwards, it is in the High Court. So it is important that the claim form is filled in detail and completely, because otherwise we will have to bother you, talk to the driver to get those details. And these drivers are out on the road, and to get hold of them is problematical for us. So it will assist the insurer if a claim form is completed in full, because it does save us money, it does save time, and we can get a summons out immediately. If it's not, then we sit with the problem of having to contact the broker. Then the broker's got to talk to the operator. That all just causes us to lose time. And we would like to get a summons out ASAP, because if you haven't got a summons out within a year, it's no longer a recovery. Now, for defendant matters, we need the exact same details, because if we're defending a matter, we need to know exactly what happened. And I need to know from reading the description of the accident whether there is a defense. If the description of the accident simply says, I was driving and I was involved in an accident, I don't know what your defense is. I don't know how it happened, and I don't know whether the driver was negligent. Then it means I've got to contact the driver and I've got to talk to him. If it's a complete description, a full description of the accident, I don't need to do that. And some 9 or 10 times, I then only need to contact the driver when we go to court, and we on the claim form we assessed it to be a good case. Then, most importantly, if you go to the last page on the claim form, it's marked your responsibility. And most often than not, this is problematical for any operator, because there's a little, it says disclaimer, it's marked disclaimer, it's got a heading disclaimer. And it says, you are responsible for giving us true and complete information relevant to this claim. You hereby confirm that your loss or damage occurred during the period of insurance. And this becomes problematical because this claim form is not a privileged document. With POPI, that's on us, they are entitled to view the claim form the other side. If we go to court and we for the plaintiff, the defendant is entitled to see it. And if we for the defendant, we're entitled to see the plaintiff's claim form. And they start their cross-examination by asking the person all sorts of questions. And then they say to him, but sir, in your claim form, this is what you told your insurer, but today you're not telling the truth. And yeah, you signed yourself. So it is crucial that the information on the claim form ties up with what happened at the accident. More often than not, the claim form is completed by a clerk that simply fills it in, and then some of the drivers don't even sign the claim form, and the clerk signs it or the transport manager. By the time we talk to the driver, he says, that's not what I told my employer. That's not how it happened, and then we've got a problem. So please, just to call on you guys again, when we complete claim forms, that's our starting point, because without that, you don't get very far. Is for that claim form to be completed fully. Then for the transporters and the brokers that's got call centers where you call and you give information, just make sure that what is on a claim form is asked to a driver when he makes the call, because you can get all of that information from the driver and he can give it to you. If that happens, that makes our lives a lot easier. So that is what I want to conclude with, is just to say that if the claim form is not completed properly, you will hit a snag when asking the insurer to attend to a recovery or to defend a matter on your behalf. And what I also just want to point out is, with that little bit, if the claim form is not completed properly, it is quite possible for an insurer to say that you falsified a claim, or you didn't give the correct information, and then what you tell us doesn't type it with what's on the claim form. So please make sure that everything is correct, because it will make everybody's life so much more easier. Thanks a lot. That's my conclusion.
Thank you, Victor. Yeah, the legal arena for insurance and compliance certainly is not onerous. Everybody should know what the fine print says. Harry, I think now that the defense is rested, it's time for cross-examination there. If the panelists get back, I didn't see any questions coming through. I got a comment from Caroline, which we'll acknowledge now. But I think, yeah, if the four panelists get back on, and maybe I'll kind of broach the discussion. It has been very much in line with the standard T's and C's. I'm just wondering how the panel can assist us then with your views on how the current legislation, specifically the POPI Act that comes into effect, or some parts of it today for compliance, and then the ARTO legislation is kind of hanging in the balance, because a lot has been said. It's going to be effective today in a phased rollout, but the Department of Transport has been kind of very remiss in the way they're handling that. But I think it has huge implications within the insurance and risk sphere. And lastly, from my side, I don't know who, if not everybody, can touch on those all three issues. Your feedback on the use of technology and what was previously deemed to be very private information in the adjudication of insurance claims, i.e. using kind of social media interface or any technology-driven information data, and how insurers and brokers and from a legal perspective, this is used to either validate a claim or repudiate a claim. As we know of recent cases, insurers are want to be tracking your movements, checking what your social activity has been on in the media space, and or what comments companies do or businesses do or don't make in terms of certain things. So yeah, I think I'll lead us into that discussion from the panel point of view. Harry, before they get stuck in, just give us a guidance from an administrative point of view. How are you managing the time so that for the rest of the program?
Thank you, Basil. Let's give 5 minutes or so for questions and answers, and then we'll take a break so that we can start again at 11:10. So yeah, let's see. Ladies and gents, you're welcome to go to the participants room and raise your hand so that we can recognize if you want to ask a question. The guys in YouTube are welcome to text questions should you have any questions to this. I will appreciate that. All right, so let's see. Or you can mute yourself and then we can pick it up from the participant box when you unmute.
Thanks, Harry. I'm hoping the panel got the gist of my query there from a high-level point of view. Over to you, anybody, to start off.
Basil, I would just
You want to go, Stan? Okay.
Basil, I would just like to
Thanks,
mention that any information that is posted publicly or in published in the media, etc., is public information. So if you want to keep your social media information private, then you obviously have to make sure that those settings are there. But yes, insurers do go and look at information that is available on the internet, and the press, etc., might publish this information. And that's either to substantiate the claim or to obtain information that's relevant to that specific incident. So yes, POPI plays a massive role, but it is also every single person's responsibility that if you want your information to be private, to have those settings as private.
Thank you, Yolandi. Okay, guys, don't see me these direct questions. Maybe we can ask the panelists for some closing remarks for this portion of the event. Maybe highlight 1 or 2 major issues in your field of expertise that you think the people should take note of. Maybe we can start with Steve, and then we can take Stein, and let's do then Victor, and then Yolandi. So Steve, some major points you would like people to take note of.
Harry, yeah, I just think to summarize what I was trying to get across is that there are ways that one can save money on your risk and insurance spend. I say risk and insurance because it's not just your premium, it's about what you save, what you pay on physical securities, etc. So I think the important thing there is, my message is, interact with your broker and make sure that he has identified and advised you and recognized your contributions to risk management and structured your affairs in such a way that you do save premium. That was really the message that I'm trying to get across there.
Thank you, Steve. Much appreciated. Stein?
Thank you, Harry. I'm going to leave the legalese to my friend Victor there and his beautiful legal library behind him. But I do want to echo something that he said, especially when we get to Sasria claims and Sasria matters. You know, the proliferation of information is extremely important. And we see a lot of Sasria claims in the transport arena. And the more information we have around where it happened, how it happened, what's in the social media, what's in the newspapers, etc., help us to make those claims stick and to get a good outcome. And I'm sure Victor can speak about that. The second point I'd like to leave with you is that I spoke generally, and I'd like to make a general statement about technology. So the proliferation of technology and data over the next sort of 5 to 10 years is going to be amazing. And, you know, we're starting to get into 5G now. And if we think we can do a lot with monitoring and tracking devices, etc., under the current regime, I'm sure the folk from Howie and that will tell us with the introduction of 5G and the capabilities we have of a smarter world there, it's just going to enhance transport capability across South Africa. Thank you very much.
Indeed, Stein. Thank you very much for that. Right, Victor, please.
Right, just as far as a POPI is concerned, us lawyers like to leave it to see what happens out there, and then we tell you then what to do. It's wide open for interpretation. You know, as you are aware, there's the 8 conditions for lawful processing of personal information, talks of accountability, processing limitations, purpose specifications, etc., information quality. I can go on and on and on. I have not specifically prepared on POPIs except to say that it is out there and it will be made use of. People will force you, especially now where you will find POPI coming in. Yolandi is where a claim is rejected. And your insured will then go to the broker, or the broker will come to you and say, well, in view of POPI, that information is not private, and we're now asking you to make it available. And it will have an impact, because we all know that a claim form, for instance, it's not a privileged document. If you ask an insured or an insurance company instructs a loss adjuster to prepare a report, that report is done solely for the purpose of assisting the insurer to make a decision as to whether they can process the claim, etc., and how they should go about it. And it's not a privileged document. I know a lot of guys write on it, this is a privileged document, but it's not. And a lot of people are not aware of that, and they keep on saying that, well, it's not a privileged document. But with POPI upon us, you can bet your bottom dollar that there's going to be a lot of litigation going on with POPI. I, in fact, have had my first bite at the cherry where they have threatened me with litigation if we don't make available certain information. We're still contending that because we say it's privileged, so that one will take its course in the courts. But so just be aware of that it will have an it will have an impact. We don't know how far-reaching, but it will have impact, and you've just got to be aware of that and what the effect is of the POPI Act. As far as OTTA is concerned, that is a very worrisome piece of legislation. I'll give you an example. If I look at the faces, except for Yolandi, the gentleman that I'm looking at, you've got kids. Cars are all registered in their names. Registered in your name, but they're driving them. You sit at home, and the next minute they come and they lock you up, and they tell you, or they take your license away. Your son's told you, oh, I didn't tell you, I went to 80 speed, and it's happened. I know, we all know what we're talking of here. And suddenly there's a problem. That same problem presents itself to the transporter, to the company that runs specifically buses or a large outfit with trucks. And you've got to have it's risk management to have that in place, because that will be used by an insurer also to assess a company. I mean, if you have drivers, and that's going to be a means of finding out how the drivers are performing. I mean, they're going to ask the question, what is your, how many, what is your, you know, I don't know how you're going to put it, but let's just talk. If you can ask them, how many fines have you had? What is your take to OTTA, etc., etc. And that's going to be something that you've got to look at. That's all I can say. They've got to get that in place and make sure that the drivers report those things. Otherwise, it can create umpteenth problems for a contractor. That driver cannot drive a truck. Then you've got to get another driver to drive that truck. You've now got to make 100% sure, do your risk management when you look at a driver to see that he is in the clear. Otherwise, you're going to pick up problems. That's all I can say.
Extremely important. Thank you, Victor. Thank you for sharing that. Yolandi.
Yes, absolutely. I want to echo Victor on auto. Definitely, it's going to have a massive impact and complicate insurance a lot. And that is why I use the analogy of you know, thinking like an astronaut, having the mindset of an astronaut. Think of every single thing that could go wrong. If auto says you've got to do certain things and you've got to have certain processes in place, at least being able to demonstrate to your insurer that you've done everything possible to adhere to the auto legislation. That is very important and critical at this stage. And I definitely think this is a topic that needs to be explored, you know, going forward in more detail. We'll actually just another webinar just on this topic. But yes, remember, those with the most order and organization gets their claims paid.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Ilandi. Basil, you want to add something to us?
Yeah, Harry, I just want to acknowledge, first of all, Caroline, your comment about, you know, saying it as COVID fatigue, but not in the sense of what everybody says, COVID fatigue. Your point about drivers experiencing extreme fatigue post-COVID is important. But I think, you know, it also talks to operators, owners, and everybody, ensuring an inclusive process of discussion. Because first of all, it's down to the individual. Accountability and responsibility to communicate impact and effects of COVID stems from individuals, and then companies need to ensure they engage with labor. It's not something that's clearly and openly discussed, but point well taken. I think in future processes, hopefully we get to understand and set a norm that is comfortable for everybody and acceptable to the driving workforce without impinging their ability to earn income and continued processes. But reducing the mitigation from post-COVID infections, critical. Harry, I think the first part, yeah, was well positioned, and thanks to our panelists, yeah, who set the scene from a kind of paralegal, semi-legalese, insurance red tape and implications point of view. It's a good base for us. I certainly believe this topic warrants further drill downs down the line, potentially more follow-ups on this. But having taken all of that, thank you, panelists, for your contributions in round one. And based on that, Harry, I think we're good to take and give everybody. Do we still do applause? Virtual applause. Ha, ha, ha.
There we go. Hands
Thanks,
up.
everybody. Hands up. High fives all around. Yeah, and based on that, that's my point to call for a recess. Victor,
Thank you very much, Basil.
Nandi, thank you.
Yeah, hopefully the panelists
Harry,
will
you're
stay
going to
with
set the
us.
timer up for us.
Hopefully the panelists will stay with us. Thank you very much, Basil, and all the panelists. Ladies and gents, let's take a break, go and grab a cup of coffee or something, and we see each other at 11:10. I'll put up a timer for us on the clock, on the screen. So thank you very much. See you.
There you go. I'm up to the top left then.
Okay, guys, let's take up our seats again to start the second portion of our event. Thank you, Basil. Over to you.
Thanks, Harry. Were you a school teacher before? That tone. Take up your seat, please. Thanks. Welcome back, everybody. Yeah, leading into the second part of second session. I think sometimes the first two aspects leads me to come up with very often the people involved in this segment or sector often getting labeled or tagged with a bad rep as the guys who cost us the money or try to prevent us from getting most of the money we are due in terms of claims and assessments, that kind of thing. But getting straight into it, first up in our next segment is Eric Robinson, who is a loss adjuster with Arab Loss Adjusters. Eric's a member and director of Arab Loss Adjusters, and he has been in this space for loss adjusting and motor assessments for 28 years now. Happily married to, as he's set it out here, his gorgeous wife, Jackie Robinson, for the past 24 years. They have 3 boys, 2 of whom at university and 1 still in high school. He has a couple of memberships, Institute of Loss Adjusters, Institute of Motor Assessors, the Fire Protection Agent Association, the association or member of the South African chapter of the International Association of Fire and Arson Investigation. A little bit about Arab Loss Adjusters was founded in 2000, currently has 3 branches, including Pietermaritzburg, Kokstad, and Umtata. And he therefore services the KZN area and large portions of the Eastern Cape and portions of Lesotho and Southern Free State. And he has service level agreements with all major insurance companies. In terms of SASRIA, he has dealt with SASRIA claims varying from tens of thousands to claims in excess of hundreds of millions of rands in quantum over the last 20 years. And his claims are attended to nationwide and not only the historical geographical area. So I think he's primarily positioned and a great panelist to talk to us on riot, strike, and intimidation issues and broadly around what is SASRIA. Welcome, Eric, and good day to you, and over to you.
Good morning, Basil and Harry, and to all the panelists, as well as the people attending our webinar in Webinar Land. It's indeed a privilege to address you all this morning from a far warmer Pietermaritzburg than I suppose where most of you are in the Gauteng area. Our thoughts are to all of you in Gauteng, first of all, carrying on with the 3rd wave. And yeah, we are thinking about you there while we are, I suppose, preparing for our 3rd wave. But yeah, hang in there, stay warm, stay safe, and hang in there. I want to also thank everybody for the privilege of inviting us to attend and address you in the seminar. It is indeed a privilege, and hopefully that which I have to share has a little bit of relevance. It gives you a bit of information that is useful and sheds a little bit of light on SASRIA, what SASRIA is, why it is, how it is, and what it's there for. I also want to thank the sponsors for hosting the seminar, because obviously without them, none of this would happen. Now, I must also apologize for my lack of technical ability. I am technically challenged, so it might take a while to get some of these slides up. So bear with me while I try and figure out a couple of things on these computers. Let me hang around there. All right, so as I just quickly flip through here, the first thing is warm greetings and thank you for all attending and thank you for your valued time. We are going to sit back, relax, and hopefully get going with the seminar. I've been tasked today with addressing the aspect of the South African Special Risks Insurance Association, otherwise known as SASRIA.
Eric, sorry to
today's-
interrupt you
Yes.
there. Can you go to view and full screen mode? Click on view and full screen mode.
All right, let me try that.
Just go down there, full screen mode.
Okay, we got it.
Yes, thank you.
I said technologically challenged. Thank you. All right, in today's uncertain times, due to COVID-19 pandemic, our spiraling economy, joblessness, increased crime, violence, lawlessness, all of which are on the rise. All businesses are suffering. I suppose our general economic sector is suffering, but in particular, I think your transport industry might be bearing the brunt of it. If we look at the news, drive on the highways, and we see all the riots taking place, we see that very often vehicles, transport industries are being attacked. Vehicles are being burnt down, they're being hijacked, they're being looted, and cargo and freight are obviously suffering a financial loss. And this is part of the reason for the seminar today, and obviously where I come in with the SASRIA Fund. Now, some of these crimes are motivated by basically criminal syndicates with our acts of crime. They don't have any other motivation behind them other than people are actually just hijacking the trucks for the loot that is within them, being the load or the vehicles themselves for spares or the actual trucks themselves to be utilized in some other form or for transport purposes, general crime. And that your insurance company cover under the normal policy. But there is another reason or motivation behind some of these losses, and that would be acts which are motivated by political disorders, political reasons, such as parties rallying against government legislation, against government delivery of services. We've been reading in the papers or watching on the news about lack of service delivery. We've been reading about terse payments that have been made. We read about municipalities not being able to provide basic infrastructure. And as a result, the local population in an area get upset, and they take it out on whatever's closest or nearest. And these are called acts of public disorder. And we will address some of these acts of public disorder, which are pertinent to the transport industry and how they affect the claims that we would be then looking to present against SASRIA. Now, the issue that would probably be first need to be addressed is, what is SASRIA and why does SASRIA exist? So let's first describe and discuss what is SASRIA. As I said earlier, SASRIA stands for the South African Special Risks Insurance Association. And I'm going to read off the screen because this was basically taken straight out of SASRIA's website. And it encapsulates it better than I can describe it. SASRIA stands for the South African Special Risks Insurance Association. Since its formation in 1979, SASRIA has been covering politically motivated rights. I'll describe a little bit later why they were formed, but I'm just going to give a definition of who they are now. SASRIA SOC Ltd is the only non-life insurer that provides special risk cover to all individuals and their businesses that own assets in Southern Africa, as well as government entities. What's important, it's a South African only insurance. This is unique cover against risks such as civil commotion, public disorder, strikes, riots, and terrorism, making South Africa one of the few countries in the world that provide this insurance, particularly at affordable premiums. By enabling businesses to restore their liquidity or operations quickly and efficiently after experiencing loss or damage due to special risk events, Sasria plays a significant role in preventing job losses, maintaining livelihoods, restoring pride and dignity, and facilitating economic stability. Sasria works through a network of agent companies and brokers who distribute the coupons on their behalf. The short-term insurance solutions are both for corporate and individuals. Sasria is a non-life insurer, provide affordable voluntary cover against unique risks such as civil commotion, public disorder, strikes, riots, and terrorism to any individual, business, government, or corporate entity which has assets in South Africa. All right, why and how did Sasria exist? Sasria basically came about after the strikes, or rather the riots that occurred in 1976, the Soweto uprising. Up until then, Sasria never existed. In 1976, when the Soweto uprising occurred, the insurance industry in South Africa realized that those kind of losses they couldn't cover. In essence, an insurance policy is a risk-based policy. The premium of the many is collected to pay for the losses of the few. Insurance company are very clever people called actuaries who analyze a set of risks and the risk factors around them. And based on very complicated calculations, which are too clever for a dumb loss adjuster, they work out what an acceptable premium would be to cover these losses, and a fund or pool, as was spoken about earlier by the other panelists, is created, and out of this pool, claims are paid. These are fairly predictable risk factors which a premium can be calculated against. When you throw in something like a political uprising or a civil uprising, these are factors which cannot be calculated or controlled or managed. So, I think somebody spoke earlier about risk management. This is a risk that cannot be managed because somebody or a group of people get upset about a situation which business insurers cannot control. It cannot be a risk that is managed. And so the South African short-term industry at that stage realized that this is something that they could not control or manage, and more importantly, couldn't reinsure because nobody would give them reinsurance. And so a special fund in conjunction with the government was created called Sasria. Now you notice I mentioned government for the simple reason, as you may or may not know, Sasria is owned by government. Now, how it basically works is that, as I spoke about earlier there, the Sasria have a network of agents, companies, and brokers who distribute coupons on their behalf. The short-term insurance solutions are both for corporate individuals. A premium is paid into the fund, and based on the policy prerequisites, if a claim is submitted and a policy coupon is owned by the claimant and the conditions of the claim and the policy are met, a claim can be paid, just like an ordinary insurance claim. You have insurance cover, you have a claim, and the policy conditions are met, you get paid. Now that is easily spoken about, but in practice, it's a little more complicated because like any government organization or any party that has funds, they protect these funds. And they have quite a few hoops that have to be jumped through. If anybody has in this industry, which I suppose most of you have, had the misfortune of having had an incident where you have suffered a claim as a result of riots, strike, public disorder, and the like, and had to submit a claim against Sasria, you'll note there's a lot of red tape, there are a lot of hoops that have to be jumped through, a lot of pitfalls and stumbling blocks that have to be negotiated. And that's part of the discussion today. It is very fortunate that we do have this fund, because as you noticed that we are one of the few countries where this fund exists. And possibly we were a market leader or a world leader in creating this fund. So how do we tackle this beast? Like any organization, you first have to understand how it works. And once you can understand it, you can work with it. And once you can work with it, you can then use it to, I don't want to use the word to our advantage, but we can work with it to achieve the purpose of having claims paid when all the criteria are met. So the first thing is we have to appreciate that they have policy conditions. We will discuss these conditions a little bit later, but like any policy, they also have exclusions, and you have to be aware of what these exclusions are. Not any incident will be covered. For an example, I will discuss looting a little bit later. There's a difference between general looting from crime and looting that occurs due to a politically motivated incident. They don't cover crime. That is what you have a normal insurance policy for. And so us collecting information a little bit later, which we'll discuss, is important. I'm going to leave the slide for people to read through later. It just gives you a little bit of an outline of who Sasria are. Again, it's off their website. Now, the actions that are most pertinent to the trucking or the cargo industry would be the following items, which we're just going to discuss a little bit in more detail. And the first one would be right action. Now, I would think quite a few of you, or most of you in the industry, have come across this. Now, the definition from the Webster's Dictionary of right action is described below. A violent public disorder, specifically a tumultuous disturbance of the public peace by 3 or more persons assembled and acting with a common intent. Now, I draw your attention to disturbance of public peace by 3 or more persons. It doesn't have to be 3,000 or 4,000 persons. It is important that the ordinary meaning of the word right be adopted. It is clear from the judgment that the following pointers be used. Now, why I brought that into the slide is in a court case, the judge utilized the following definitions to try and describe how we interpret right or action, because they decided that the dictionary's definition was too broad. And these were the 5 points that came out of the judgment. Right should be defined as the perception of the man on the street, what you and I would discuss or describe or consider a right. 2, a large number of people acting unlawfully. Remember, the Sasria policy initially started as a politically orientated policy. Later on, they extended it to not only be or respond to politically motivated action. It changed to cover riot action in general, not just politically motivated action. And that is also of great importance to Sasria claims. So when a riot action or strike action occurs, you no longer have to concern yourself with it only being politically motivated. And that sometimes we find to be one of the concerns of clients is, well, there was no political action. It does not only have to be political action. It can be right action only. A large number of people acting unlawfully, violent or threats of violence to any person, disturbance of the public peace by violence, tumult, and strife. So that would be the definition of right action. I think that's fairly self-explanatory. In other words, a whole group of people acting unlawfully and creating violence or damage. Your truck comes to a halt in an area. The people are rioting for service delivery. They are annoyed because there's been no water. And guys, we've had lots of accounts of that all over the country. And you can pick up any newspaper, you can look on the TV, and we will see we're unhappy with sanitization. We're unhappy with electrical feed to this area. We are unhappy with the water supply. We are unhappy with food parcels. So the local community get together, they write, you unfortunately are the lucky or unlucky truck that came past, and they started pelting it with rocks. Your driver stopped, they whip him out the cab, he gets a hiding for his troubles, and that truck is set alight. That's right action. Cesar response. I use that as an example, but it could be a bus, it could be any form of cargo. But I'm just drawing the analogy of right action and not only politically motivated right action.
Eric, 5 minutes.
Okay, all right, let me hurry up there. I'm going to fly through a couple of the other ones. Sorry, it's a massive subject with a very limited time to discuss it in. Strike action normally refers to economic grievances. I like this little picture of Oprah there. I go on strike, you go on strike, everyone goes on strike. Often what you find is a group will start striking, and then we have sympathetic strikers who join them, and a small little strike becomes a massive strike. And unfortunately, as a consequence of the strike, we have the unlucky transporter coming past, and he suffers the brunt of their frustration. Intimidation. Now, the Cesar wording doesn't talk directly about intimidation, but if you look at one of the extensions under terrorism, it talks about unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians and pursuit of political aims. But what we find is the word fear. Intimidation can be extended to include fear. If I am using fear to change people's perceptions of things, and I am creating fear in an industry, i.e. in the transport of people, one group is intimidating the other group and using fear to bring about a change in that industry, we can utilize that in presenting claims against Cesar. Civil commotion, large-scale violence by members of the public causing injury to people or damage to property, public disorder, a riot or other civil commotion that give rise to the public, whether at a single location or resulting from a series of incidents on the same or different locations. We use a lot of this to build a link when we deal with Cesar claims. In an area, it may not have to be the same locality, but if one incident gives rise to other sympathetic incidences, we can use the link to join it to say, guys, here, this incident has caused a spark off or a sympathetic incident in another area, and we can join the dots. I spoke earlier about looting. Looting is only covered if it is motivated by the civil uprising and event, not by crime. Right, this is probably the most important aspect of the chat today. What happens when we suspect, or you suspect, that the incident that you were suffered may be related to Cesar? People listening, please, this will help a hell of a lot when we deal with the claims. Not all these things are possible, because when the incident occurs, your driver, your conductor, their lives may be at risk. So they cannot always do all these things, but whatever of these points are possible would be of great benefit. If it is possible, if the driver and conductor can take photos of the scene, they got cell phones, it will help. Get statements, this is possible, to get a statement from the driver, conductor as soon as possible. If it's somebody in the busing industry, to get statements from eyewitnesses, if possible. In other words, passengers that were in the bus, or people that were in the scene involved, bystanders, not obviously people involved in the riot or strike action. Very important, report the matter to the nearest police station. Collect any social media or media reports of the incident. Get details of any other vehicles who may have also been affected. Normally, it's not just one truck or one vehicle that gets stoned or burnt or damaged. There's normally a whole lot of them in one particular incident on one highway. It would be good to have the details of the other. Again, we can build a case of an incident. If possible, and normally this is possible, when the conductor or driver is pulled out of a vehicle, they demand that he runs, you can find out why the people are rioting or striking in that area. It's good to know. The locals are having an uprising because the municipality had not delivered water in the last 6 months. And this was touched on earlier, and I can't reiterate this more. Please encourage your staff to cooperate with the assessor, the investigator, or the loss adjuster. It's incredibly frustrating when we get given the driver's details, and for 6 months, I can't reach them or the investigator can't reach them. I have a claim right now, which is going on 8 months, because I cannot speak to the bus driver that was involved in an incident. They cannot, and it's not an liability claim, by the way. We cannot move further because I cannot get a statement from this driver. The driver's always driving. Guys, we're not moving forward with that claim. So that loss is being suffered by that company because we cannot move any further forward. We know it's a Sasria claim, everything ties up, but I still need to speak to the person involved in the incident, and we haven't got any further forward. I want to thank everybody for, first of all, not slipping into a coma. Thank you for your time, and have a wonderful rest of your day. And I hope this was of some use and shed a bit of light on a little bit about who Sasria are, what they are, and what benefit can be to you, especially in terms of risk management, because if an incident happens and the claim is picked up by Sasria, it doesn't come against your claims loss ratio, which obviously assists you going further forward. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. Just one interesting point, very anecdotal, but I've learned something. If you indicate the thought processes and origins of Sasria emanated 1976, I have to put my activist hat on then in that case and say, taking your statement, the premiums of many to pay for the loss of the few, I would have to say from an activist point of view, we'd have to credit our dear struggle heroes there. The loss of their suffering has resulted in the benefit of many today through Sasria, if that has in fact got some roots. But I'll talk to the legal and contractual obligations and public disorder from an operator point of view when we're having a panel discussion. So thank you very much, Eric, for that overview on Sasria. So moving along, next up, we're going to go to Cassie Botha, who is an assessor by trade. Cassie, after having finished his BCom law degree at the University of Pretoria, started working at Interbolt Truck Repairs for a period of 3 years, and then moved on to initiate Assesstrans, which is now 11.5 years old. For the first 6 years or so of Assesstrans, it was basically a one-man show, but he has since grown it into a team of 8 people. Started in Cape Town, he now has a Gauteng branch since January 2017, and in this year has incepted a Port Elizabeth branch in January 2021. His first year, he did a whopping 185 claims worth 11 million rand, so cutting his teeth big time in the first year. In 2020, Assesstrans did 2,970 claims worth just over 316 million. These amounts are not including write-off on trucks, just claims that were authorized for the year. And Cassie is now expanding to Durban, so he's sitting in Durban to see if a branch there would work while his team is dealing with the claims in Cape Town, Gauteng, and Port Elizabeth. So given his wide range and exposure in this sector, I think he's well positioned to tell us how and what we need to do to ensure speedy claims are processed with a quick turnaround time and less downtime. Welcome and thank you for your time, Cassie, and over to you.
Yes, Basil, thank you very much. Cassie done a lot of effort. He pre-recorded. He's a bit concerned about his bandwidth. So he asked me to play his presentation, the video to the audience. I'm going to play the presentation to you guys.
Makes for a nice change in tack there, Harry.
Absolutely.
What to do to ensure speedy claims turnaround. A short bio of Acestrans. After finishing my BCom law degree at the University of Pretoria, I worked at Interval Truck Repairs for 3 years. Acestrans is now 11.5 years old. For the first 6 years, I was a one-man show, but has since grown into a team of 8 people. I started in Cape Town and opened a branch January 2017 in Gauteng, as well as a branch in Port Elizabeth January 2021. My first year, I did 185 claims worth 11 million rand. In 2020, we did 2,970 claims worth just over 316 million rand. These amounts are not including write-off, just claims that were authorized for the year. I'm currently in Durban to see if a branch here would work, while my team is dealing with the claims in Cape Town, Gauteng, and Port Elizabeth. How a claim works from an assessor's point of view. Getting appointed by email, the process goes as follows. We immediately open the claim on our online system. It goes on a register with our reference number. This number has a year and month in it to make it easier to find claims from any year. The quote, along with our instruction sheet with all the details of the claim, is given to one of the assessors. Finding the vehicle and planning the day. When the assessor gets the quote, he will start finding out where the vehicle is and if it's standing still or driving around. Once the assessor knows where all the vehicles are, he will plan his route for the day. The assessment of the vehicle. At the vehicle, we do our report and check the roadworthiness of the vehicle. We take photos of the maker's plate and license discs if they are still on the vehicle. We look at the general condition of the vehicle, the paint, the bodywork, the inside of the cab, and so on. We measure each tire and record the tread left on them. We then go through the quote. Report done by the admin. Where we differ from other assessors are we do our work at the truck on a tablet. The report and photos are put on the cloud or mailed to the admin personnel who can immediately start to do the report, revising the quote and finalizing the report. The assessor will ask the office to send the quote and a photo of the vehicle to get alternate and second-hand parts or prices where needed. The assessor will change the labor, paint, and parts to which is allowed and fair to all parties. Once the quote is done, the admin personnel will finalize the report and send it in. The claims handler will send the authorization to the repairer based on the revised quote. Extras and final costings. If there are any extras, it will be sent to us for approval. The repairer will send the final repair costing to us when the repairs are done, and we will make sure it is correct before signing it off. The signed FRC will be sent along with an invoice to the insurance for payment. How the industry has changed over the last 5 to 10 years. The transport industry has grown exponentially over the last 10 years, and there are more transporters now than ever were before. This causes a lot of competition, and a transporter is at real risk of losing his contract if his truck is standing for too long after he had an accident. This translates to there being a lot of stress involved in an HCV claim, and this stress is put on the broker, claims handler, and assessor to get the claim authorized as soon as possible. At Acestrans, we understand this stress and strive to be a positive part of the claim. Our whole system has been online for 5 years now, which really came in handy when COVID struck. This is also where underwriters have changed transport insurance. The big insurers have a one-size-fits-all approach, where underwriters can adjust their policy for each client. With this change also came the direct contact between brokers, insureds, and the assessor. 10 years ago, no one was allowed to speak to the assessor except the claims handler. The opening of channels has helped with claims moving quicker. Assessors are also not only appointed when everything is received anymore, but can be appointed as soon as the accident has happened. This helps the insured with someone guiding him through the repairs process. The insured and assessor can quickly make decisions which would save time till the vehicle is back on the road. How to make a claim go quicker. Get an assessor involved sooner rather than later. When towing is arranged through a call center and the insured has a preferred repairer close to the accident scene, tow the vehicle there directly. Biggest bottleneck from our side is the claim forms and documents needed to finish our report. Make sure your clients have copies of their license and registration documents, as well as the driver's license. There is admin now that would save days when there is a big accident. Brokers must help their clients with claim forms and make sure they have a complete accident description. We get many claims now where the insured has a different story to his claim form when we speak to him. This causes unnecessary delays. On the claim form, we need the location of where to assess the vehicle. It would also help if we get the ops manager's contact details on the claim form instead of the admin officer's number. Using the same assessor if the client and broker is happy with them within reason. This saves days on every claim as the assessor will know who the client uses and can be involved from the start and help to push from their side as well. Underwriting needs to be accurate. The number of times we have been appointed on a trailer is scary, or just an Afra trailer, no description of model. If you have any questions or need to get in touch, our details are on our website, www.assesstrans.co.za. Thank you.
Thanks to Cassie. Both are there, short to the point and absolutely telling us what we should always have been aware of. In fact, he's always saying help them to help you get a speedy resolution of the outcomes and management of claims, and also your attention to detail. Thank you very much, Cassie. All right, moving along. Now we know a whole lot more about the different facets of all the aspects of insurance, but what happens when you're on the roadside and your assets are along the road? So let's hear in a bit from Peter van der Merwe. Peter also goes by the name of Wimpy. At 53 years old, he began his profession as an architect way back in 1993, and then took the path of an entrepreneur and became the founder and director of Global Choices Assets, which has been in existence since 2001, and then also Global Choices Lifestyle, which has been incorporated since 2002. Then also is part of Digital Path since 2014 and Claim Central Africa since 2018. Peter lists his passion, amongst other things, our lovely country of South Africa, art, design, thinking, and digital solutions. And Peter will talk to roadside assist, emergencies, and repatriations, and also how do we protect our assets and lives in this sphere. Peter, I've deliberately not mentioned your tagline that you've got in your bio. Maybe you would take that as your opening statement. Thank you for your time and welcome.
Thank you very much, Basil. I just want to share my screen quickly. Where's my screen? Okay, thank you very much, and for that introduction, and also for the opportunity to discuss, the services and solutions, the usual solutions that we provide to the insurance industry and also to their customers and clients. Just a little bit of introduction. Global Choices was founded, it was mentioned by Basil, 2001. We are licensed FSP, and we got offices in Johannesburg and Cape Town. Our clients are in the life, short-term insurance, and financial services market. And it's a group structure, and you will actually understand through my presentation how all these companies work together. It's all about collaboration with different types of intellectual properties and solutions. There's Global Treasures Lifestyle. There we run a 24-hour call center. We are value-added product provider, and our triple BE level is a level 3. And we constantly try to improve it to get to a 2 or 1. But every time they change the codes, we just miss that. Digital Path is our digital development company with a bunch of coders and developers, where we create digital solutions and also for our call center platform. And then there's Claim Central Africa. There's a joint venture with an Australian company. They developed digital claim solutions and platforms across the board for the insurance industry. And we've now been in existence for about 3 years in the country. So Basil mentioned about, one of my passions is design thinking. That's because of my training and conditioning as an architect and the way we look at challenges or problems and how we solve it. So we use design thinking to partner with our clients and in that collaborations to gain certain insights and to understand, put yourself in the shoes of our clients and their customers, and then to create the objective to resolve things or make things simpler, or just if there was challenges or problems, how to solve them with our many services and digital solutions. Or sometimes we develop whole new solutions because we stumble across a new opportunity. We heavily invested into these different developments over the last 20 years. And I believe that, we have to focus, or our main aim or objective is to look at the customer journey, all the touch points, see which ones are problematic or how we can simplify them and how we can focus around them. And when a risk event happens, how to assist that client to resolve the specific risk event and to, extract him from that position. That can be sometimes very traumatic as well, especially in accidents. And we are available 24 hours a day. And I'm the big promoter, and I want insurance brokers and insurance companies, risk events don't keep office hours. So how I look at our solutions is that we are a 24-hour hub, and we got all these different solutions that we can actually then utilize 24 hours a day for their clients and customers, and I've got access to it, and then to resolve the issues. So we use our digital solutions, our 24-hour emergency solutions and services to optimize multiple objectives and simultaneously. So in my next slide, I will show, we believe that the emergency phone call we receive is at the beginning of a claim, and how we can, give the customer or the policyholder a great experience from that first event, and help him with his risk journey and claims journey going forward. So all these things I just babbled about, the foundation of design thinking is empathy, and that is key to unlock client insights, and that's where the partnership and the collaboration with our clients work, proactively targeting their needs, and then design and develop game-changing products. So this is a very simple little diagram. In the insurance industry, everything starts with the emergency event. We've got a call center. Yolande showed a screen of an app that we provide to them, and we've got this Live 24 Assist app or functionality, and the call center agent or the case manager can send an SMS to the client. You can open it up, and the agent can then see what the client can see from his cell phone. The client doesn't have data, we load data on his phone. So we overcome through the times, we've seen what is the challenges, and we got solutions for all those things behind that. And we capture all the information at that site. But when we send out a service provider, a tow truck or ambulance, they can also capture information from their cell phones, but it all downloads to the same platform under the same case number or claims number, and it sits there. So that platform is then open to the broker, the underwriter, or the insurance company to go and view as well. We start in pre-populating that claim form, a digital claim form, because we've got access, if we got access to the policy administration side of it. And when the client, we resolve now the emergency side of it, he gets an SMS, he opens the portal with his digital claim form, and he can go through it, edit what he needs or add to it, and then submit it, or it can just be a first notice of loss. There's an app, a physical app you can download. There's an app list, so that's where we just sent an SMS with a link. You open the link, or there's a self-service portal on the broker or underwriter or insurance website under their brand. And then we also facilitate claims resolutions, and we got a whole scenario around that. But also very important, the same technology can be used for virtual inspection, so you can see what asset you actually put under cover, and there's a whole record. So all of this information we captured is hosted in the cloud, and it's available for 7 years after the case is open in the cloud. So I've run most of this, so I can just run over it quickly. What's very important to understand, we become the extension of the brand of the client. We answer everything we do under the brand. So it puts huge pressure on us to actually look after the client's reputation and the customer experience. And we've got now 20 years of experience in that market. So we need to take care of our client's brand and reputation on everything that we do. So we put the right protocols, processes, and procedures in place to make sure we keep to those code of conduct. The live video streaming service is a very a new type of technology, but very, very effective in everything we do. Just to give you a little bit of interview, it gives you a time and date stamp of where it's been taken and on a map, etc. So there's a lot of information that gets captured, and that can help with third-party claims and legal issues maybe after the emergency event as well. We brand the assistance services apps under the client's brand. We've got the panic button. You just press the button, it sends a signal to our call center. The call center phone you back in 30 seconds, and they can locate where you are on your cell phone, and then dispatch the necessary service providers. And at the same time, they will also open the live video streaming for you. And then there's a self-service portal. Okay. So all these companies that we got shareholding in and so on, we see it as a digital media collaboration platform for insurance. So we integrated all to solve certain problems in the insurance industry and how we can actually resolve it. So the call center agent or the assessor or the claims department can actually view certain things and use that information. It gets all recorded and is always available. So if you've done a pre-inspection, you can see the condition of the asset, and then when there's a claim, you can actually go and pull it and then revert back to the condition of that asset, to the damage that's been done now. Throughout the process, we can also measure the customer experience. So they get another SMS, open this link, they can put a comment. And if you press the red buttons, the bad service, or you're not happy with the service, it then activates a whole nother protocol to make sure things are getting escalated to the right people to make sure the customer is being treated fairly and resolved quickly. So we also incorporated in our platform armed response and security assistance services, especially now with COVID and a lot of people losing their jobs. Crime is busy escalating. So on the apps, there's an armed response, and even on our, we also got a separate panic button that you can keep in your pocket. It's also linked with the cell phone networks, but we use a different frequency. You can actually be used anywhere in the world, except for certain countries where it's run by dictators or there's a lot of conflict. And you can even communicate to the call center. You can be located to see where you are, and especially in our crime challenges we face, is to give another tool for that as well. And you can be tracked via this panic button. So I was asked to talk about roadside assistance and assistance services. Just a quick overview of what we provide to the industry. The virtual pre-inspection is before a vehicle gets, undercover, is to capture that, or what the condition of that vehicle is, time and date stamp, geolocation, and live video streaming and photos from that platform. We provide roadside assistance and towing to about over 700,000 vehicles at the moment. We do accident assistance services and towing. We do vehicle repatriation because people travel across the country and the vehicle must come back to Johannesburg and Cape Town, etc. So we facilitate that. But again, we use our technology. What's the condition of that vehicle when we uploaded it from the storage yard and when it's dropped off as well. So there's a record keeping process the whole time. We also provide, covers and assistance service around legal. When you're in a motor car accident, to do a quick legal assessment of your case, to record that as well. And then I spoke about the life accident assistance, claim assistance services, where we start in the emergencies phone call process, capture all of that. For heavy commercial vehicles, we do also assistance services like road and accident tows and facilitate that. And when the event and our call center get a telephone number and there's spillage, then we use our technology to capture the situation and what type of chemicals may be on that vehicle, or is it diesel, whatever the case may be, and then we send it through to the service providers of the insurance companies so they can actually then prepare for that specific spillage to be cleared up as well. And it's also good for record keeping. For some of our clients, we do crash detection, so using their devices in their cars that actually send us notification when the vehicle is in a crash, and then we will try to contact the client that's on the database. But if he can't answer, we then dispatch roadside assistance and medical emergency. We also provide motor concierge and proactive risk management solutions, the tires, windscreen, scratch and dent, repairs, shocks, etc. for companies. We also do car hire, car replacement. And then, as I mentioned, the security armed response assist and hijacking victim assist. It's a product we developed around when a driver's been in a hijacking situation, what happens, and we provide certain solutions. So it is anything from we drop off a cell phone, as your cell phone has been stolen, with an app, so get access to all the other products and services. It's pre-activated, recut, and they can keep it as a little smartphone. It's normally a Samsung. And if they stole his wallet and so on, we also can give him cash. So on a card, all application forms for driver's license, car license, passport and ID cards to be replaced, etc. Trauma counseling, in personal lines, we provide car hire. We will even place a guard at your house to give you extra security and comfort, and many more. But all of that is actually on that package that arrived. And then we also do home safe chauffeur services. That's to prevent drinking and driving. So we'll pick you up in your vehicle after you had too much to drink. It's not maybe applicable in this market, but the same services I will explain that we also provide for driver's assistance. We can provide medical emergency assistance, evac, ambulance, and private hospital guarantees. And that's also something we developed for bus companies, for passengers. When they were in an accident, the transport to hospitals, pre-paid or guarantees that's in place at those specific hospitals on those specific routes that we can facilitate. We also will send someone else to go and assess the situation, and then also to get them to sign road action fund claim forms, etc. We do fines assist and reporting so many fines on a driver outstanding, and giving them payment tools to pay those fines, and also get them access to a discount. You can also keep track of vehicle license renewals, etc. As I mentioned, legal, then trauma counseling. Even a motor car accident can cause quite a lot of trauma, so we can provide trauma counseling and support. When a person's been injured and they must go through rehab, we've got trauma chauffeur service. We'll pick up the person, take him to his rehab, and take him back home. There's so many events per year as part of the underlying cover of the insurance policy. We also provide, we've got an infrastructure where we've got we provide funeral assistance services, and then repatriation of bodies. We do it across the country and across our borders, and also internationally. We've got an infrastructure in Alberton, where we've got embalming rooms, cold storage, and vehicles that's refrigerated, etc. And then the intelligent panic button, as I mentioned. So we develop all these different digital tools under the brand of clients. The clients we sit with the clients, what are their needs, and we activate the functionalities on this digital ecosystem and the app, and then people to download the app or make them aware of the call center number, their websites, etc., where they can go and download these specific digital assets. Self-service portals is just under the brand. People can do their claims and submit it on the internet. So that's my story, very quickly and brief, and that's the products and services that laboratories provide. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, I think without a doubt, digital solutions are our future. It's already here. I like that you already referencing the integration to fixing problematic touch points that currently exist, because the human contact always results in some kind of stress and trauma. But if you can do that and make the experience more seamless together with your empathetic approach, I think you're onto a winning platform there. Thank you very much for your time and presenting.
Thank you.
That then takes us to our last panelist and speaker for today's event. Does he even need an introduction, Harry? He gets introduced so many times, but I'll do it nevertheless to give him the honor of being the panelist today. Next up is Oliver Naidu. He's the Managing Director at Judah Compliance Auditors. We often hear about him and JC Auditors, who get flighted in just about every event at Harry House. So Oliver is extensively involved in heavy vehicle transport sector, specifically in the risk and compliance space. He has conducted in excess of 1,000 road transport audits and now manages a team of auditors actively promoting safety and compliance in South Africa and the neighboring SADC states. Oliver is currently chairperson of the SABS Technical Committee for Road Transport and Safety Management Systems, and he's also on the ISO Road Traffic Safety TechCom, responsible for that. He plays a key role on the RTMS National Steering Committee in embracing the challenges of introducing the concept of self-regulation to the transport sector. He has also presented at RTMS at more than 60, or presented RTMS at more than 60 national and regional workshops in various sectors promoting road safety amongst various stakeholder groups. So Oliver is going to talk to us, obviously, and in line with that intro, to the value of RTMS to transport operators and how to achieve a certification. Thanks, Oliver. Welcome, and thanks for your time.
Thanks very much, Harry, for the platform. And Basil, thanks for the comparing of the event today. I had no idea I was that popular. So you've certainly stoked my ego, Basil. Thank you. Okay, I'm guessing you can all see the screen.
Perfect, thank you.
Great. So I'd like to chat to you today, and I think I've done this a couple of times already, around the RTMS standard, which currently is the only national standard we have that's intended to promote safety, specifically in the heavy vehicle segment, for transport operators, obviously primarily, but also for consignors and consignees, and really to get a level playing field where the point of origin of goods, destination, and the transport operator all play by the same rules. And the SANAS logo actually validates that the audits and the process is comparable to international norms when it comes to auditing and management systems that are credible and that are able to achieve the various intended outcomes. So oops, I'm not sure why it's going so quickly, but the current standard has 13 elements, and each element specifies a specific requirement that's related to compliance, to safety, to efficiency, and essentially it requires a very structured management approach. So, to be honest, in the last 15 odd years since we've been conducting audits, we have found that there's a huge component of transport operators that don't have a structure that promotes safety. It's a lot of it is around the sort of management of the business, but the safety management is often marginalized or neglected. So with the RTMS, it requires for there to be a structured system, and it's about self-regulation. When we started this project in 2003, but then around 2006, the concept of self-regulation was, and still is to some extent, something that people don't fully understand. It's about how can, in my business, how can I take responsibility and ownership to manage my trucks, my vehicles responsibly without relying on law enforcement or external stakeholders in that regard. So the concept of self-regulation is something which the RTMS promotes actively, and something which organizations embracing the RTMS will need to adopt. There are four main pillars in the standard, and as you can see, it's all around protocols that are aimed at mitigating the risks that an average transport company, or in fact all transport companies, are faced with. So it's around fleet. How do you manage your fleet? Specifically loading, whether you're loading coal, or you're loading cars, or whatever it may be, there are specific protocols. Now for the Saboa sector, where one is loading passengers, it's even more critical because it's human lives that are at stake. So the second pillar looks at safety and compliance, both in terms of vehicle safety, safe operations, and monitoring of KPIs around those two main areas. Driver wellness, we probably all know already, has been sadly neglected historically, where we haven't given it adequate attention. And I think some of the very sad statistics we see on our road networks are probably testament to the fact that we have neglected the drivers, not just their wellness, but even their training, their development, and supporting these individuals who are professionals in their own right. But I think we haven't quite got it right in terms of affording them or empowering them to function as professionals. And in the standard, the RTMS standard, it requires this kind of support to be given to the drivers to enable them to comply with the requirements of the standard in terms of safe operation of the vehicles. And at the base there is from an audit point of view and from a management system point of view, there is a requirement for there to be policies and procedures in place that define exactly how the business will manage its fleet operation, for there to be monitoring And so things like monitoring of overloading, monitoring of service intervals, monitoring of speed violations, monitoring, and I'll cover them just now, in fact. So monitoring all the safety critical operational processes and where things do go wrong. So if there's a driver that does not or does not comply with the speed regulations, has someone detected that? Have the fleet controllers been made aware of coaching the driver or counseling him, etc.? So the standard is around having systems, but equally important, monitoring and responding through corrective actions where there are anomalies or negative trends. So for example, in the heavy vehicle bulk loading segment, one of the requirements is to minimize overloading. So the RTMS standard requires for there to be source documents confirming what were the tonnages loaded, and the audit will seek to evaluate for each month what is the percentage of trips that have been overloaded. Now, we know that overloading damages our road networks prematurely, and it robs the economy and the country of a vital asset, our roads. But also, if a truck is overloaded, then that vehicle, the braking efficiency is compromised. The vehicle dynamics is compromised significantly. So you can think of it, going around a bend with a truck that's 50 tons at 60 kilometers per hour is quite different going around the same bend at the same speed, but carrying 5 or 6 tons more. The laws of gravity and the centrifugal forces, all of that come into play. So overloading is not just bad for the infrastructure, it's equally bad for the vehicle or safe vehicle operation. And with the RTMS, the requirement is to minimize overloading, and it's a key requirement in the standard. And this is probably one of the reasons why it is being supported or has been supported by government as well, as it does preserve the road networks in the country. Another key area, which is pillar 2, is around road safety. And I've just picked out 1 or 2 key areas just to emphasize some of the operational criteria. And I've got 15 minutes, so I can't cover everything. But here in the standard, for example, it is a requirement for a company to have a policy in place saying, listen, this is what speeds we would permit on a national road, on a provincial road, on a municipal road, etc., and then to monitor and to ensure that where there are trends around habitual non-conformance or negative trends, that actions are taken to prevent those trends from continuing. I was reading a paper yesterday or the day before around crash statistics and accidents in general, incidents. And it was a UK publication. They were saying that for every major crash, the driver would have seen approximately 2,000 to 3,000 near misses. And I think forward-thinking transport companies are now saying to the drivers, listen guys, when you're out on the road, give us this feedback. If you see a near miss, if you are part of a near miss incident, tell us about it. We want to document it. We want to share the information with the other stakeholders. And so I think it's really important for an organization then to really monitor and get this diagnostic information from the drivers around what risks they are facing specific to the route or the commodity being transported or to the supply chain they're involved in. Then the standard also makes a requirement for there to be incident investigations. And this doesn't always need to be a crash or a collision. It can be a near miss. It can be a small incident. But by analyzing all this data, the intention is to be able to define, listen, of the crashes or accidents or near miss or incidents, where should we focus our attention? Is it driver fatigue related? Should we perhaps spend a bit of resource on defensive driver training? Are there animals on the road? Are there third parties? So it helps you to then understand what are the major contributors to incidents or potential incidents. And this allows you then to obviously upskill and to create an awareness within the business. Traffic fines are, in the RTMS standard, deemed to be a key indicator of one's performance. And so there's a requirement to, and has been for some time, a requirement to register every traffic fine issued to the business, to analyze it in terms of the nature of the offense, who was driving the vehicle at the time, and to pick up trends. Is there a specific driver always incurring fines? Or is there a specific type of offense, such as indicators not working, or brakes defective, or speeding? And in this way, it then gives you another additional diagnostic of where to hone in terms of addressing that specific high-risk behavior in the business. Okay, and aligned to the RTMS standard requirement to monitor traffic fines, we know with RTO it was due for rollout, or phase 1 rollout today. It's been very quiet, and we're not sure what the current status is, but be that as it may, RTO, it's quite complex. It applies to the proxy, it applies to the technical people, HR, etc. But the greatest at risk, obviously, is the drivers and the companies that have large fleets, where they could potentially have drivers disqualified based on the fact that each offense is given a specific demerit point allocation and a specific rand value fine. And after 3 such disqualifications, I beg your pardon, after 3 suspensions, then one could have a driving license cancelled, and it could have a severe impact on one's business. RTO and the whole admin process, it can be quite, I think, cumbersome, but we believe if you're a fleet operator, minimize the likelihood of incurring infringements. And then, this whole RTO admin burden becomes less of a concern or less of a worry. And we've been advocating this for a number of years in the RTMS, is to manage your fleet responsibly, and then you'll have less of or you can go to bed better at night, sleep well at night, knowing that your fleet is being responsibly managed. In terms of vehicle maintenance, the RTMS standard does require for there to be a service schedule where every truck, every bus, or every trailer is tracked to ensure that one is aware of when is the next interval that it should be serviced on. And then for the audit, one would need to show a source document, such as a job card, as an example, or it could be an OEM invoice, or other records to show that your vehicles, whether it's a truck or a trailer or a bus, is being serviced in a preventive manner. So you don't wait for it to give you a problem, but you service it in a systematic manner. The same would be applicable to pre-trip inspection. The standard is clear in that every truck or bus or vehicle must be inspected. And this is not purely about a paper exercise, which often, sadly, it can be seen as a paper exercise. So in the audit, we would typically, for example, first let me say, if a vehicle is found to be critical or substandard, then the RTMS standard says that it should not be allowed to operate until it has been repaired. So in an audit, generally what we do is we would look at a sample of vehicles in the fleet, check that the driver's on the pre-trip, and then do a physical inspection on the truck to validate that if he's ticked, everything's okay, that it is in fact physically okay by looking at the truck and checking the brakes, the headlamps, and all the other parameters that one needs to check. In terms of driver wellness, I was speaking to Chris Tretch, who's in the KZN DOT a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying that the number of single vehicle incidents on the N3 is increasing. So if the truck or a bus or a car that goes off the road and gets into a ditch or knocks into a tree or whatever the case, it seems to indicate that fatigue or lack of fatigue management is becoming a bigger and bigger factor in terms of the risk that's faced by transport operators. So the RTMS standard looks at and requires for there to be at least annual medical fitness certificates. If a driver has been diagnosed with a chronic condition such as diabetes or hypertension, then the standard requires that the company needs to have a system indicating how will they manage this higher risk driver. So it could be more frequent clinic visits. It could be a declaration he must sign confirming he's taken his medication. It could be at the briefing or debriefing, the controllers asking him questions around his health. How do you feel? Have you taken your medication? So it's all these proactive tools that one would use to ensure that these higher risk drivers are adequately managed. For fatigue management, and as I've mentioned already, the standard requires for there to be a defined shift system with adequate rest day allocations. And here again at the audit, we would request for the drivers the telematics data, and we would look at their shift roster and then compare the two to ensure that if they were due for a day off, then the telematics should confirm that they were not driving on the day that they ought not to have been driving. Monitoring of driving hours, especially in the long haul, for a driver to be driving 7 or 8 hours continuously, it's a massive risk. So part of the audit to RTMS standard would look at, is the company monitoring continuous driving hours, and are they evaluating driver fatigue? And a lot of it goes down to training, actually. So typically a driver comes on shift at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. And you as the fleet owner or fleet operator, you haven't a clue whether he slept that night, or has he had his medication, or has he had his breakfast, whatever the case may be. So a huge part of the standard is around empowering and training drivers so they have the knowledge to make decisions that are safe and compliant. And defensive driver training is a key requirement in the standard. And it's not just about an academic exercise once a year. In fact, that's probably not at all a good idea. It might be good to have it academically, but for the outcomes of the RTMS to be achieved, one would need to integrate the safe driving behavior into the business. So the culture should be around, the drivers being conscientized by the controllers at debriefing and briefing. There should be awareness posters. There should be learnings shared around this. So all of these defensive driver training components ought to be integrated in the business. Because most drivers tend to have the view that if it didn't happen to me, it won't happen to me until it does. So by conscientizing and having a continual program in place, it just creates the awareness and the focus that would obviously play a big role in minimizing the likelihood of crashes and collisions. So the RTMS standard requires for there to be a quarterly KPI report submitted on the website. And this report is essentially quantitative data submitted by the operators to confirm, okay, here's a list of it, to confirm number of crashes, number of fatalities, number of trips overloaded, traffic violations, number of service overruns, etc., etc. So this quantitative data is then analyzed to validate that all the policies and procedures are achieving the safety goals of the standard. And over the years, we've had some really good success. For example, that's a slide showing the overload reduction in the forestry sector, where from levels of around 38% initially, the overloading is now less than 1% for at least the past seven years, I think. And a similar statistic can be seen in the sugar industry and in other industries, but there isn't always such good monitoring as these two sectors have shown in the past decade or so. This is another slide showing the city of Cape Town. They've got 900 plus vehicles, and through implementing the RTMS, they've had a massive reduction in the incident rate per million kilometers traveled. This is a private company, VDS1 Logics, and you can see that even though the kilometers traveled, which is your blue bars, have increased, except in 2020 due to COVID. But over the years, they've had increasing kilometers traveled, but the red line shows a decreasing number of crashes or accidents. And this is another slide from the same company showing how they've proactively monitored speed violations on the different contracts. So they transport vehicles for the OEMs like Mercedes and VW, etc. This is another slide from the city of Cape Town. Interestingly, what a lot of companies have found and reported on is that by training drivers on things like maintaining a safe following distance, complying with the speed limit, limiting harsh acceleration, it's actually impacted positively in terms of fuel consumption. And this is one which City of Cape Town have realized, and they are, I think, quite positive and happy about that. Over the years, we've had, I think, 60 plus workshops throughout the country. And this was one of the, just before COVID hit, we had a very good workshop at Coca-Cola's offices, and where we present the awards to the companies that do comply, just to give them some kind of recognition around that. So in conclusion, RTMS is essentially a risk management system that focuses on having defined policies, procedures for the key elements that you see on the screen, and around monitoring those, and if there are anomalies, taking actions to ensure that bad behaviors do not continue unchecked. And ultimately to hopefully ensure that we all have safe roads. Thanks very much, Harry and Basil.
Thank you, Oliver.
Thanks, Oliver. Thanks for your contributions in that space and keeping the efforts up in terms of maintaining the standards. I must confess that the industry's challenge is essentially twofold, I think. And I speak specifically from a public transport point of view, I think the move is first to maybe get them to be compliant before we get into the certification and accreditation point of view. But I think ultimately what we're hearing from you, it's not just about getting that certification, it's about living the process and it becoming a culture. So folks, yeah, I think that now wraps up our second part. I think everybody will join us back. Harry, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think we'll just give it another 10 minutes or so because we're slightly behind, but I don't see any questions that have come through specifically. So it looks like I'm going to have to ask some questions to keep our panelists honest and earn their keep.
Thank you, Basil. Can we ask the panelists of this afternoon to switch on their cameras, please? And ladies and gents, while we're bringing them into the panel, kindly, use the participants box, or you can see at the bottom of your screen at reactions. Can you use their raise hand function that you can then raise your hand and we can recognize you so that we can get you to ask questions. Thank you very much. Or you can type in the what do you call it, the comments block, the chat room. I'm just bringing in our panelists. Oliver, you're not going to partake. Can we have your camera on, please?
Sorry, Harry, believe it or not, I got a message from my son now. He's involved in a crash, so that's why I had to just take his call, but not too serious.
Oh my gosh, sorry to hear that, Oliver. I hope he's okay.
No, not too bad apparently. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
So I take it you're going to conduct a root cause investigation there, Mr. Naidoo?
No, I'm just going to beat somebody up.
One way to resolve it. Seems like our panelists are going to get away with just a smile on the screen. Harry, I see now 3 questions coming through from this segment. Yeah, I think you can
Few
just maybe
people are happy.
give them a
There are
chance. Yep.
There are people following on YouTube, but they're also happy people on YouTube. You're welcome to text questions in YouTube. We will have a look at them. Basil, okay, maybe can you shoot a question? You said you've got questions.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It might be a bit unfair in this space, but I think, I was talking to more the contractual obligations, and maybe the rest of the original panel may come around. If I had to contextualize from an operator point of view, I have a legal obligation to effect terms and conditions of my contract. So in terms of public liability and or protest action, if it is well communicated that there is protest action or violence or disruption in an area that I'm supposed to operate, but I still have a contractual obligation to provide a service, I'm now left with two challenges. If I don't provide the service, I have punitive effects potentially, unless I can prove the reasons why I didn't do the service. And if I do, there is the risk of me suffering damages to my assets and or like. So I'm not sure whether it is in this panel or the previous panel. I was just trying to establish at what point does impacts like public liability, force majeure, and everything else come into effect, especially when you get a convoluted arrangement where an operator as a vehicle under finance, which is got financial implications for the finance house because it's still their asset, that kind of thing in terms of that. So yeah, very complex scenario, but I was just wondering out aloud if anybody has any comment in that regard. I told you I'd stump this panel, Harry. Yeah. Yeah.
Basil,
Yeah, there's an element of everything. Yeah.
Yolanda is coming
Yeah.
there.
So Yolanda is probably best positioned to talk to that, I think. Yeah.
So the operators are in a predicament. That's precisely what we call a rock and a hard place, because they have to fulfill their obligations in terms of, of honoring their contracts and keep business going. But at the same time, they've got all these risks. Now, like I said, there's certain risks that you can insure, and your broker will be able to identify it for you. And there's different kinds of liabilities involved. So it could be that you damage property, or you damage a vehicle, or you cause injury, or that's a quite complex scenario. But I can't stress this enough that and Eric will definitely echo me here, when it comes to SARIA and those type of things. It's very important that you follow the instructions, and that's the only thing that I can say to operators, because it's their livelihood. Say they can't stop working, but they have to face these dangers every day, and that's like you've got to get back to the drawing board, go see what the problems are, and you've got to mitigate it. You have to have SARIA on your policy. You have to have the relevant liability covers on your policy, and this is where the broker is mandated to advise you on exactly what you've got to have in place. So your insurance broker plays a critical role in identifying these liability risks. And yes, sometimes these problems needs to be escalated with the relevant bodies in that community or in that space, so that it can be addressed. I mean, we've had we touched on it in a conversation, just looking at having a violence avoidance strategy that's supported by government, where there's actually policy in place to say that this will not be tolerated. And this is what our industry, and all the industries surrounding the transport industry needs to be working on. We need to get we can't just leave the problem to escalate. We've got to address it in every single way possible.
Thank you, Yolanda. Any one of the other panelists want to comment on that? Everybody happy, it seems. Okay, guys, let's then wrap the session. Let's do the same that we've done this morning. Can we kindly ask the panelists that we have some closing remarks from them? Maybe, lifting up the most important things, the message you've got for our audience. Maybe, highlight two things that you think you need to stress. If maybe we can start there, Oliver, and then we'll have Eric, and then we'll have Cassie, and then we'll have Peter, and then we'll have Basil to close the event for us. Yolandi, I don't know if you want to have some closing remarks as well.
I've had my turn and I've contributed enough, so I'll leave it up to these fine gentlemen to wrap it up. Thank you.
Thank you,
Harry.
Yolandi. All right,
Okay.
Thank you very much. Oliver.
Yeah, thanks, Harry. You said two things. So I think the big thing for me is coaching driving behavior or positive driving behavior. If you look at crashes, incidents around the world, 70 to 80% of that is due to personal driving behavioral issues. So the one thing I would say is for operators to spend a bit more time, more thought, more energy to innovative ways of engaging their drivers, not purely discipline, but to also empower them and to change the culture progressively. And as Basil said, going for certification isn't always possible at the outset, but certainly for starting to emphasize and give more attention to coaching good driving behavior. And the second thing is possibly just to monitor, to have the fleet controllers more aware of their role in terms of managing the fleet and to monitor behaviors that could again be used to promote good, positive and safe behaviors. Thanks, Harry.
Thanks, Oliver. Well said. Thank you very much. We said Eric. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the two things that I would like to part with would, first of all, make sure you have Sasria cover on your policy. It is an optional cover, which most insurers or brokers would give you the option of having. Make sure you've got it, especially in today's volatile times. I don't think it's going to get any easier out there. I think as COVID takes its toll and our economy continues down the path that it is heading, we're going to have more and more incidents. We currently have the ex-president who's got about 3 days to hand himself over, and situations are brewing there, and we don't really know what's going to come from that. We've got a couple of interesting times ahead. Being on the road in some areas that could be volatile, Sasria would be a really, really good option right now. And then if you are involved in an incident like that, take as many details of what happened, how it happened, where it happened, when it happened as possible, and cooperate with whomever's involved in investigating the matter, because that's all going to help towards your claim being processed and settled, and you getting on the road as quickly as possible, no pun intended. Because at the end of the day, your insurer, whether it's Sasria, or in this instance, obviously focusing on the Sasria fund, are there to help you. So help us help you get your business on the road so that you can operate, because the economy needs you. The transport industry is the backbone of this economy. So guys, help us help you. Thank you.
Lots of wisdom there. Thank you so much, Eric. Cassie.
Afternoon all. The two things that stuck out for me, first, like Yolandi said, please ask your insureds to work with the assessors. It makes the claim go so much quicker when they don't have the attitude, don't speak to me, speak to my broker. It really makes our job a lot easier if they just want to fall in and help. If we need papers, don't say, send it along or ask my broker, he'll send it. Just send the papers. The claim will go quicker like that. And then like Eric and Victor said, claim forms, please fill in your claim forms properly. It makes such a big difference on our side when we need to finish the claims off. And that's more or less it for me. Thank you.
Indeed, sir. Thank you so much, Cassie. Appreciate your wisdom. Peter.
Thank you, Harry. Just on to conclude, we're facing quite a lot of challenges and rapid change in the moment, and a lot of technology advancements and so on. So I think on both sides of the coin, the operators or the policy holders and the insurance companies, you know, if you try to create new solutions, but you base it on outdated paradigms, to overcome these modern challenges, we need new paradigms. And you know, and there's also go and understand the frustrations and the challenges of every day, you know, that empathy about the operators, what they're going through, and how can we just make it a little bit better? Because sometimes we as insurance companies, or like I'm a provider to insurance companies, don't change quickly enough to adopt the changes that the policyholders. And the future of insurance is also when things are becoming more custom, the risk development is going to become more custom designed for specific clients as well. It's not the big, it must work for everybody. It's going to become a little bit more about the individual or the needs of the individual company and their challenges. Okay, that's just me. Thank you.
Thank you, Bumpy. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Let's, ladies and gentlemen, from my side, big hand to all the panelists, and thank you so much for supporting us. Thank you for a good audience. I would like to give the last word to Basil from SABOA. Basil, thank you very much for your MC work, and we really appreciate your time as well. So please close the session for us.
Thanks, Harry. Yeah, I think just to take it from where Peter ended up, you know, the process, I think we've learned today that there's going to be business interruption. It's going to impact on business continuity, our staffing, as Oliver mentioned, human aspects, behavioral aspects, then all the processes. And given what we've learned today about the digital solutions and technologies available, I'm just concerned and sad that despite our widespread communication, the industry hasn't taken up this option to be part of today's event, but hopefully they will pick it up through the YouTube streaming or not, because it was a extremely useful and informative process on how to mitigate our risks, and especially call on the industry to ensure that they demonstrate everything possible is being done from their perspective to ensure compliance and follow the processes for insurance. But thanks to all our panelists and for your time and contribution today. From a SABOA perspective, I want to thank Yolandi and Steve, specifically Ability and Indwe, for making this possible in our collaborative process. But as always, we will strive to continue to bring certainty to the transport environment. We have ongoing engagements with regards to policy, legislation, and other issues affecting transport per se. And we hope that we can bring some certainty going forward so that insurance and risk not only managed, but can be mitigated in terms of costs. And then to you, Harry, as well, allowing us to use your platform and to Transport Forum. Great to see you growing additional members there, as you announced earlier on today. And yeah, looking forward to ongoing collaboration with yourselves. And thanks everybody for your time and attendance, and take care and be safe.
Thank you, Basil. Thank you very